Chapter 1160. Jinma secretly looked at the search results to find out where to eat on their first date. Many of them were couples' restaurants, and some even gave free tickets for romance movies. So considerate? Jinma was struggling. There were so many good restaurants. Where should they go? He pretended to be experienced and asked, "Do you like the Japanese couple restaurant in West City?" Wei said, "Stop the car." Jinma panicked and almost drove the car into a tree. His face was tense as he looked at her doubtfully. "Why, you don't like it? There's also that famous flower restaurant in the south. Why don't we go there?" Wei almost rolled her eyes. He was so hungry that he was left with only a layer of his stomach. Why would they go to a Japanese flower restaurant? Would they be able to fill their stomachs at those places? What was the point? She said again, "Stop the car. There was a local hot pot restaurant just now." It was a rather famous hot pot restaurant. It was clean and had private rooms. It was just that the price was higher. Jinma's Adam's apple bobbed when he heard the words hot pot restaurant. He was practically drooling. It wasn't that he didn't live up to expectations, but he hadn't had the chance to eat hot pot for many years. The last time he ate it was 3 years ago when he sneaked around like a thief and ordered hot pot takeout. Although it wasn't authentic, it still satisfied his craving. But he was almost found out, so he didn't dare to eat it again. Jinma stopped the car and said in a reserved manner, "Actually, I don't really eat hot pot, bang." Wei had already slammed the car door and got out of the car. Jinma sat alone in the car, pretending that no one appreciated him. Was his angelic image so worthless? Why wasn't Wei touched by his sacrifice to eat hot pot with her? Jinma secretly hid behind Wei, not daring to make a sound or show his face. He even bent over when he walked. He was afraid that someone would recognize him. Wei calmly ordered the dishes and even booked a private room. The dishes were all the most expensive and the best. It was fine if the two of them couldn't finish the food. They could pack it up. A private room was a must. Otherwise, Jinma would have to wear a mask throughout the meal. Thinking of that scene, Wei wanted to laugh. However, for the sake of her strategy, she had no choice but to make Jinma more comfortable. Although she still felt that he was cuter as a cat, it would be more enjoyable to tame a cat. In the private room, the waiter served the hot pot ingredients and prepared the hot pot soup base. It was a mandarin duck pot, with one side red and the other white. After confirming that the waiter would not return, Jinma could finally breathe a sigh of relief and take off his mask. The aroma of the hot pot lingered around the tip of his nose. Jinma realized that he had gone to look for Wei without eating dinner. His stomach started to growl. Wei calmly picked up the serving chopsticks and added the dishes into the soup. Jinma saw that she was already at the bottom of the pot. Feeling a little anxious, he immediately put a plate of mutton into the chili soup. He was afraid that Wei had already put in the clear soup. He loved spicy food the most. In the past few years, he had been eating bland food. Once, he couldn't take it anymore and secretly went to the supermarket to buy a bottle of Lao Ganma. In the end, he hadn't eaten it yet. His manager saw it. He could only pretend that the cook had left it behind and endure the heartache as his manager threw it away. Jinma ate a piece of cooked mutton. The spiciness exploded from the tip of his tongue. This was the enjoyment of a top-notch feast. He was so moved that his eyes filled with hot tears. He was touched that he had finally eaten the food of his dreams. At the same time, he nimbly chopped down his favorite dishes and stuffed them into his mouth in one gulp. He disliked that his sleeves were too long and rolled up to his elbows. He was just short of stepping on the chair with one foot and holding a beer in his hand. Wei stared at him in shock. This was like a completely different person. The transformation between an angel and a rough man didn't give anyone time to react. Jinma saw that Wei was staring at him blankly. He stuffed a piece of meat into his mouth and said vaguely, eat quickly. Don't starve." After saying that, he even thoughtfully picked up a piece of beef and stuffed it into her mouth. Wei quietly asked the system, "Fuck, Jinma doesn't have schizophrenia, right?" The system said, "No, he's just driven crazy by the food." Anyone who had dieted for so many years and still couldn't eat anything they liked. They would go crazy when they saw their favorite food. Wei sympathized, so pitiful. If she wasn't given good food, she would go crazy too. The system nodded. If it wasn't given food, not only would it go crazy, it would go crazy in a creative way. Oh, Jinma ate until he was full before he remembered that he had a guest. Wait, his whole body stiffened and immediately looked up at Wei Wei Bai. However, he found that she wasn't looking at him. Instead, she lowered her head and ate the fish balls in small bites. Her thin red lips contrasted with the whiteness of the fish balls. There was a hint of redness. He suddenly felt dry and immediately took a sip of the frozen fruit juice beside him. Only then did he manage to suppress the inexplicable fire in him. Wei Wei Bai picked up a plate of lettuce and was about to put it into the hot pot, but her hands weren't long enough, so she had to stand up. Ojima also stood up immediately and eagerly reached out to take the plate from her. He was afraid that she would remember how hungry she looked when she reincarnated. I'll do it. Wei Wei Bai wasn't paying attention, and the plate slipped out of her hands. Ojima was shocked and immediately reached out to hold her body, afraid that she would be scalded. He lowered his head, and her alluring lips were actually by his lips. He kissed her lips that had the taste of the hot pot soup, delicious and soft, sweeter and more fragrant than the spicy mutton just now. Ojima's chest was hit hard. His brain was in a daze, and his heart started to beat faster. Ding! The male lead's favorability has increased to 20. Transmigration system. Male god, come here. Download the https://www.sashu.com/transmigration system. Male god, come here. Download the full article. https://www.sashu.com//transmigration system. Male god, come here. Download the full article. https://www.sashu. Chapter 1161. Her breath blew against the tip of his nose. Her eyes, which were just inches away, carried a clear and bright mist. His lips were close to hers, and his hands were hugging her back, almost trapping her in his embrace. Ojima trembled for a moment before realizing what he had done. He immediately let go of his hands, and the two of them separated. Wei Wei Bai immediately took a few steps back and looked at him in surprise. Ojima pursed his lips, but when he smelled her breath on his lips, he immediately let go of her lips, and his pale face couldn't help but blush. His voice trembled. I didn't do it on purpose. His heart was still beating wildly, and he couldn't stop at all. This caused his mind to be in a mess, and for the first time, he really wanted to run out of the door. Wei Wei Bai was a little slow to react, and she reached out to touch her lips. Ojima saw her actions, and his eyes darkened. His jaw tightened, and the boiling heat in his body almost exploded. His voice became hoarse, and he stuttered. Are you full? Let's get the bill. Wei Wei Bai finally reacted, and a suspicious blush appeared on her face. Then she lowered her head, covered her eyes with her fringe, and said in a muffled voice, Okay. Both of them became restrained. The atmosphere was very tense. Ojima quickly put on a mask and a cap to cover his boiling hot face. He was afraid that Wei Wei Bai would see something strange about him. After paying the bill, the two of them walked out of the hot pot restaurant with a distance of at least half a meter between them. Ojima silently looked at Wei Wei Bai's back. Her long black hair was tied up, revealing her fair neck and half of her ears. His heart was beating faster and faster, making it difficult for him to breathe. After getting into the car, Wei Wei Bai turned around to look at him. Can you give me a ride? I want to pick up my cat. Ojima's eyes flickered as he nodded. Under Wei Wei Bai's guidance, they arrived in front of Su Yehuan's house. Ojima was still wearing his mask and hat. He did not wear his sunglasses. After all, wearing sunglasses in the middle of the night was not something a normal person would do. Wei Wei Bai pressed the doorbell. After waiting for a while, she heard the sound of a car driving up. A man was casually draped in a bathrobe with a white towel hanging around his neck. The water in his hair dripped down his cheeks and into his clothes. When Ojima saw this, his pupils constricted and he gritted his teeth. Opening the door like this, was he trying to blind people? He couldn't help but glance at Wei Wei Bai, only to find that Wei Wei Bai's face was a little red. She pursed her lips, looked away, and said with a smile, "Dr. Su, I'm here to see my cat." Su Yedwan immediately smiled warmly. "The little tree is fine. Go back and have a good rest. I'll just prescribe some medicine for it." Wei Wei Bai immediately looked at him happily. "Thank you, Dr. Su." The admiration in her voice was overflowing. Su Yedwan casually wiped his hair. The aura of a mature man was indescribably sexy. "You're welcome. It's what I should do." Oh Jinma, who had been ignored, looked at one person, then the other. His beautiful eyes were slightly narrowed. There was a hint of coldness in them, and there was a sense of eeriness. Suddenly, he reached out and placed his hand on Wei Wei Bai's shoulder. He pulled her into his embrace and hugged her tightly. Then he stretched out his index finger and pulled down his mask, revealing his cold and handsome face. Su Yedwan then noticed him. He seemed a little surprised. Oh Jinma snorted coldly. "I'm here to see our cat, doctor." He purposely emphasized the word our. Chapter 1162. Afraid that Wei Wei Bai would resist his actions, his fingers were very strong and did not give her a chance to escape. Su Yedwan smiled gently. "Come in." Oh Jinmo realized that he did not seem to recognize him. In this day and age, there was actually someone who did not recognize him. Oh Jinmo very calmly carried Wei Wei Bai in and saw a cat wrapped in bandages curled up on the sofa. When it saw Wei Wei Bai, it meekly. Wei Wei Bai's eyes lit up. She immediately pushed Oh Jinmo away, rushed to the sofa, and hugged the cat gently. "Little tree, are you feeling better?" Oh Jinmo's fingers were still in midair, and his expression froze for a moment. He could not even compare to a cat. When Su Yedwan saw this scene, he seemed to be holding back his laughter. Then he said, "I'll get you a glass of water." Oh Jinmo wanted to say no, but Su Yedwan had already turned and left. His slender legs were faintly discernible under the bathrobe. When Oh Jinmo saw this, his expression darkened. He had long legs too, even longer than this fellow's. Thus, Oh Jinmo stepped in front of Wei Wei Bai, blocking her from seeing what she was not supposed to see. The moment Oh Jinmo leaned over, Wei Wei Bai froze. She quickly glanced at him. Her lips were tightly pursed, and her brows were furrowed. She seemed to be very resistant to his approach. Oh Jinmo was not stupid. How could he not understand her resistance? But when he thought about what he had done to her, it was not something that a person should do. He could understand why she was so against it. Now, in Wei Wei Bai's eyes, he was probably a jerk. Wei Wei Bai did not know that he had been her cat. Oh Jinmo lowered his head to look at the big-faced cat in her arms. This ugly cat was actually leaning against her chest. He even had a wretched expression of satisfaction on his face. Oh Jinmo's eyes were sharp and murderous, but he smiled warmly. "This is Xiao Shu. Did you get into an accident? Come, let me give you a hug." With that, he took the cat from Wei Wei Bai's hands without hesitation. Big Face meowed and tried to struggle back into its owner's arms. But in the next second, its whole body stiffened. It was like an animal's instinct, especially sensitive to killing intent. It didn't dare to move and obediently curled up in Oh Jinmo's arms. Oh Jinmo looked at the cat coldly. The murderous look in his eyes was so terrifying that it was terrifying. Su Yedwan walked over and handed a glass of water to Oh Jinmo. Then, she handed a glass of juice to Wei Wei Bai. Oh Jinmo saw the difference in treatment and felt sour in his mouth. He snorted coldly. Wei Wei Bai thanked him softly and said, "Dr. Su, how much is the medical fee?" Su Yedwan sat on the sofa and smiled. "I really like small animals. I've done surgery for them before. Do I need to charge for those cats and dogs? I don't need money. I'm not a real veterinarian." Wei Wei Bai's face was a little red, as if she was shy. "How can I accept that?" Su Yedwan said, "You can treat me to a meal as a thank you." Wei Wei Bai was about to nod when Oh Jinmo slammed his phone on the table. He looked at Su Yedwan with a murderous look and said with a fake smile, "Doctor, how much is your Alipay account? I'll transfer the medical fee to you. Doctors are very poor these days. How can a meal be enough? It's better to charge more and receive more red packets to survive." Su Yedwan's smile disappeared, and she became serious. "No need. I'm willing to do the surgery for the cats. I don't want to earn extra money. No matter how poor I am, I don't need to earn money." Oh Jinmo said, If you don't want to earn money, then you have to earn money from others. Don't think that he didn't know. Using the excuse of a meal, there would be a meal after that. A meal after that. He didn't know that this Su Yehuan was trying to flirt with Wei Wei Bai. Jinma decided to cut off all signs. He saw that Su Yehuan wasn't going to accept money. He immediately took out a few hundred yuan from his wallet and slammed it on the table. The medical fee still needs to be paid. It's already so late, we won't disturb you. Goodbye. // Chapter 1163. Jinma got up with the cat in his arms. Then, he reached out and dragged Wei Wei Bai out of the room. Wei Wei Bai was dragged along. She couldn't resist at all. Su Yehuan quickly got up. Wei Wei Bai also opened her mouth. Dr. Su, Jinma frowned and interrupted them harshly. Don't send us off. Our legs aren't broken. We can walk on our own. With that said, he dashed out of the room with Wei Wei Bai as if he was flying. Jinma's expression was cold as he stuffed Wei Wei Bai into the car. Then, he placed the cat in her arms. When he got into the car, his expression immediately darkened. He said coldly, "It's already so late and you're still here to pick up the cat? That doctor is a man. Don't you have any sense of safety?" When he saw Su Yehuan, his hair was about to explode. If he hadn't come today, that D***MN doctor would have worn a bathrobe. Then, he would have used the cat as an excuse to seduce Wei Wei Bai. He knew best what kind of things men were. If he wasn't interested in a woman, he wouldn't have opened the door in a bathrobe. Unless that woman was his mother. Wei Wei Bai really didn't have her guard up at all. Jinma attributed all his sour and uncomfortable feelings to Wei Wei Bai's lack of vigilance. He didn't think deeply about why he was so angry. Wei Wei Bai carefully hugged the cat and realized that the cat's wounds were professionally wrapped. When she heard Jinma's words, she finally couldn't suppress the doubt in her eyes. Jinma, my safety doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Jinma had just started the car. When he heard Wei Wei Bai's words, he instinctively stepped on the brakes, and the car came to a sudden stop. Wei Wei Bai immediately hugged the cat tightly and was almost thrown out. She immediately turned to look at him, but all she saw was Jinma's cold face. He stared straight ahead, his beautiful eyes reflecting the light from the street lamps outside. There was a kind of crystal-clear dullness in them. He was just stunned. He was stunned for a moment, then suddenly said coldly, "It has nothing to do with me, but I have to care. I'm an angel. How can I watch strangers fall into danger? I am an angel." Such a powerful reason. Wei Wei Bai was speechless. Suddenly, a woman screamed outside the car. "My underwear was taken away by a garbage truck. Don't go, my underwear." The garbage truck in front slowly drove away. Wei Wei Bai. "Angel, someone's underwear needs your help." Jinma. Wei Wei Bai, don't think that I don't hit women. Damn it. He was kind enough to save her from the danger of being hurt by bad men. She didn't appreciate it at all. Wei Wei Bai's lips curved, but she didn't say anything. She just hugged the cat and looked out of the window in a daze. Jinma drove sullenly. It was very quiet in the car. He looked at her from the corner of his eye. Her side profile was very beautiful and delicate. Her small nose and bright red lips formed a perfect curve. Many female celebrities looked good from the front, but their side profile showed flaws. She had the most delicate and gentle side profile he had ever seen. Jinma felt nervous again, his heart beating erratically. He took a deep breath and turned on the music in the car. It was a radio station. Next, let's listen to a song from Jiang Ro, Gentle Love. This is a song about a secret love. It's sweet with a touch of sadness, full of youthfulness, and Jinma's face darkened. This song was copied by Jiang Ro from Wei Wei Bai. As expected, Wei Wei Bai looked up. Her expression stiffened, but she didn't say anything in the end. At the bottom to record this reading. Chapter 1164. She didn't even ask Jinma to change the radio station. Jinma's fingers were a little unnatural. He immediately changed to the next radio station, which was about health advertisements. No matter what, she was better than Jiang Ro. He vaguely had the idea of completely eliminating Jiang Ro from the music industry, but it was still in the planning stage, so Jiang Ro was still active. Jinma thought about the past. He He was the one who pushed Wei Wei Bai to the forefront of public opinion. Although Jiang Ro also added fuel to the fire, Jiang Ro didn't have many fans. Most importantly, his fans were scolding Wei Wei Bai. As a result, Wei Wei Bai was now being criticized on the internet. Ojima didn't dare to stare at Wei Wei Bai. He turned to look in front of the car. The streetlights cast interweaving shadows on his face. Suddenly, his voice was a little hoarse. "That song just now, was it written by you?" He carefully probed, afraid that Wei Wei Bai would suddenly be sad and angry. Wei Wei Bai hugged the cat and suddenly sneered. "If I said that I wrote it, would anyone believe me? Would you?" If it was in the past, he wouldn't even have the time to dump Wei Wei Bai, let alone believe it or not. He wouldn't even think about this question. But after experiencing a series of magical events, he had a lot of words stuck in his throat. He wanted to say it, but he didn't dare to say it. In the end, Ojima said softly and seriously, "I believe you." He had never suppressed his emotions and said such a serious sentence. After saying that, he didn't dare to turn to look at Wei Wei Bai. He lowered his thick and long eyelashes. He knew that he had changed too much. To Wei Wei Bai, his attitude was really confusing, but he still couldn't help but want to get closer to her. Just think of it as repaying a debt of gratitude. Bai Weiwei was silent for a long time before she said, "I once liked a person and used him as my motivation to move forward. To make myself stand in a place where I could see him, I took a broken guitar, took a 3-day-long bus ride from the countryside, and came to the city where he was covered in dirt and grime." Oh, Jinma's amber eyes started to throb. There was a traffic light in front of him, so he was able to stop the car just in time to hide his trembling fingers from excitement. Wei Wei Bai's voice was faint and soft, as if she was reminiscing, but there was no trace of resentment. "When I saw him, the incomplete melody in my head turned into a song. That was how the song was written. It was a song written for him. When the original owner wrote this song, it was coincidentally when she saw Ojima. However, it was not written for Ojima. It was just a coincidence that the timing was right." After Wei Wei Bai finished speaking, she unhurriedly stroked the cat. Then, she heard the sound of her favorability increasing. Ding! The male lead's favorability has increased to 25. Ojima's throat was dry. He was unable to face the story behind the song. Seeing that he could drive, he immediately started the car in a panic, and the car sped off. "Wei Wei Bai, there will be an accident sooner or later." They returned to Wei Wei Bai's broken-down rental house. Wei Wei Bai got out of the car and said to Ojima through the window, "You can go back. If the production team needs anything in the future, just call them. You don't have to come personally. If someone sees you, I won't even be able to stay here." She stood in the darkness with a helpless expression on her face. It seemed like she was very troubled, but she held it in until now. Ojima held the steering wheel and pursed his lips. His delicate face was frozen for a moment, like a beautiful oil painting, motionless. Everything she said was right. If someone saw her, she would be scolded to death. She might even be attacked by his crazy fans. But there was a breath stuck in her chest. It was very uncomfortable. "Transmigration system. Male god, come here. Transmigration system. Male god, come here. Transmigration system. Male god, come here. Transmigration system. Male god, come here." You can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like Transmigration system, Male god, come here. Comma. Chapter 1165. After Wei Wei Bai finished speaking, she turned and left. Ojima suddenly leaned out and couldn't help but ask, "Do you still like him?" That him was the one who wrote the song for her. If Ojima couldn't tell that she was talking about himself, he would be an idiot. Wei Wei Bai didn't turn around. She stood there in a daze for a long time before she laughed softly and said, "I don't like him anymore. I don't like him anymore, Ojima." Then she opened the door, went in, and didn't come out again. She suddenly realized her feelings and couldn't let go of the romantic scene of him. She didn't appear at all. Ojima waited for a long time. He waited until he turned into a fossil, but the door didn't open. He drove home in a daze. Then he lay on the bed and stared blankly at the ceiling light. His mind was filled with her indifferent and pale face and the back view of her saying that she didn't like him anymore. She didn't seem to care that her song was taken away by Jiangro. Was it because she didn't like him anymore? Therefore, she abandoned the song that she had written because of him. Thinking of this, his heart suddenly hurt. Ojima frowned. He took a deep breath and felt that there was something wrong with him. Why was his mind filled with Wei Wei by recently? Even if he became her cat, it didn't mean that she was his master. Suddenly, his phone rang. Ojima jumped up and immediately picked up his phone. He didn't even look at the caller ID. Was it Wei Wei Bai? However, the voice that came from the other end of the line made his excited expression turn cold. His amber eyes turned much colder. Brother, why is my card frozen? It was Jiang Ro's exasperated voice. Ojima sneered. Of course, he was the one who froze it. Jiang Ro's card was a supplementary card that he had given her. He could stop it whenever he wanted. He had raised a vicious and merciless ingrate. If it weren't for the fact that they were related by blood, he would have been blind. He could even find someone to break her legs. Now, he was only freezing her card. In the future, he would want her to withdraw from the entertainment industry. In any case, he wouldn't be responsible for anything between her and Jiang La lying to him would cost his life. These two matters were enough to blacklist the two of them. Ojima held back his murderous intent. After all, this woman was still his sister. He wasn't so bad that his soles were oozing with pus, so he didn't take the most vicious step to take revenge on her. Ojima's voice softened. Oh, my manager is in charge of this. He recently resigned, so I'm not too sure. Jiang Ro was anxious. She was eating in a high-class restaurant. I invited a bunch of sisters. She rushed to pay the bill, but her card froze. There were so many pairs of eyes looking at her. Wouldn't it be awkward if she couldn't pay? Brother, can you drive me home? It's too dark now. I'm scared. The card was frozen, but wasn't there still Ojima? If he came to pick her up, he would definitely pay the bill and treat her. At that time, when others saw Ojima coming to pick her up, that kind of vanity was enough to make the women behind her jealous. Ojima's voice turned cold. I'm rushing to an event. I've been recording songs all day, so I'm very tired. Aren't you the most considerate? You still want me to go? Jiang Ro had always been sweet, gentle, and obedient in front of him. She was a perfect sister, and she played the role very well. She shouldn't have gone to sing, but to act. Sure enough, Jiang Ro didn't dare to say anything. She immediately smiled awkwardly. Brother, you're tired. Why don't you ask your assistant to beep beep? Jiang Ro froze and looked at the phone in disbelief. // Chapter 1166. She hung up just like that. What about her bill? Xiao Ro, don't you have enough money? The sisters behind her said sarcastically. Jiang Ro had always been generous. How could she let others see her predicament? She immediately said, It's all because of the manager's resignation. I call my brother. He's too tired, so he asked my mom to come and pick me up. Then, she sent a message to Jiang La to pay the bill. Jiang La's card was also Ojima's secondary card. It was impossible for two cards to have problems just because one card had problems. Jiang Ro looked at her sisters and smiled with an unamused expression. Ojima threw away his phone and lay on the bed in a bad mood. Then, he closed his eyes and slowly fell asleep. Suddenly, he felt someone touching his head. He didn't open his eyes and didn't dare to move. Then, he slowly opened one eye. Sure enough, he saw Wei Wei by wiping the table. He sat on the bed. His tail and abdomen were bandaged. The faint pain made him unable to move. After transmigrating into a cat so many times, he didn't have any strong emotions. Wei Wei Bai finished wiping the table and went to the bathroom. The clear sound of a shower came from the bathroom. His cat tail froze, and he couldn't help but stare at the bathroom door. Wei Wei Bai showered quickly and came out in less than 10 minutes. She was wearing pajamas with trousers and a long shirt. Her hair was a little wet and fell to the side of her neck. Her fresh and pleasant appearance was private and beautiful. She rarely put on makeup, so her skin was unusually clear and white. Wei Wei Bai came to the bedside and rubbed his hair. She reached out and gently touched his cat head. Xiao Shu, does it still hurt? Ojima immediately shook his head and opened his mouth wide. Meow, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt anymore. It was more flattering than a dog. Wei Wei Bai heard the cat's meow. Without the system's reminder, she knew that Jinma was here again. This reward was automatic if she didn't stop it. Jinma would always be sleeping when he transmigrated. Wei Wei Bai acted as if nothing had happened. While drying her hair, she sat beside the cat. Her legs were rubbing against the cat's fur. Jinma's entire body stiffened and her hair stood on end. A faint fragrance wafted from her body. Was it the smell of shower gel? It smelled like oranges. He sniffed and thought that it was very delicious. Jinma gritted his teeth and swallowed his saliva. He didn't dare to show his wretched side. He wasn't wrong. Bai Weiwei just wasn't on guard. Even if it was a cat, it was still a male cat. How could he lean on it so casually? Weiwei Bai suddenly said, "Xiao Shu, what do you think he means?" Jinma? Question mark. Weiwei Bai sighed. I thought he hated me, but he suddenly came to find me tonight. He even said that he believed me and that I wrote that song. Jinma immediately reacted and hurriedly said, "Meow, meow, you wrote it. You really did write it." Jiang Ro was so shameless. She couldn't have written such a fresh and sweet song. Weiwei Bai's voice was low and sad. Maybe he felt that it wasn't appropriate for me to stay in this city, so he wanted to treat me better. He wanted to get someone to take photos of us meeting in the middle of the night and spread the news. When that happened, I would have to leave the city. Jinma's eyes froze. He immediately stretched out his paws and laid on her knees. He looked at her with his watery, amber-colored eyes, looking pitifully at her. Meow, I didn't. Slash. Chapter 11:67. Weiwei Bai burst out laughing when she saw him like this. All right, it's okay. I'll just go back to the countryside and farm. Jinma was anxious and hugged her leg tightly. Meow, don't go. But Bai Weiwei gently picked him up and rubbed her nose against his little nose. It was soft and warm. Jinma was stunned. He forgot what he was going to say. Weiwei Bai's eyes were full of gentleness. Go to sleep and recuperate well. I'll work hard to earn money to support you. Jinma looked at her with a complicated expression. Meow. I don't need you to support me. I should be the one supporting you. This sentence was too ambiguous. Jinma shivered and wondered why he was thinking about this. Weiwei Bai put him back into the cat bed and then lay down on the bed to sleep. She turned her body sideways and said to him, although I know that he hates me, I feel that it's already good enough that I can have a meal with him. She slowly closed her eyes because she was tired. Her voice also softened. It's a pity that you'll wake up from your dreams. We won't have any interaction tomorrow. Jinma squatted in the cat's nest, his beautiful cat, eyes motionlessly watching Bai Weiwei sleep quietly. He looked at her for a long time before looking down at his injured leg. She didn't know what he was thinking. In the morning, Weiwei Bai threw away the rubbish and carried the cat and the guitar out of the house. Today was the day of the recording of a good song. Just as she stepped out of the house, she saw a blue car appear. It seemed that the car had been waiting for her for a long time. The door opened, and a long leg wrapped in a black suit stepped out. He was dressed in a black suit with a white shirt underneath. He didn't wear a tie and wore a thin, black high-collared shirt, revealing only a small part of his neck. He seemed to have been waiting for a long time. There was a hint of impatience on his face. His sunglasses covered his eyes, revealing only his beautiful and delicate lips, nose, and lower jaw. When he saw Weiwei Bai, he said, "Get in." Weiwei Bai stood there in a daze. Jinma, who felt that he looked especially handsome, leaned against the car and struck a perfect pose. He tilted his head and said, "I'll send you to the set. You're going to be late." Weiwei Bai hesitated, not daring to move forward. Jinma frowned and stretched out his hand. A beautiful watch appeared on his wrist. This watch cost more than 1,000,000 yuan, and it was found by Jinma early in the morning. He rarely wore this thing. However, she wanted to make herself look more mature and charming, so she took it out and wore it. Actually, watches were really not that useful. He was used to using his phone, so who would look at watches? However, acting cool was useful. He stretched out his hand and raised his eyebrows. "I'll send you. Don't be afraid that I'll eat you up, and don't think that my fans will kill you. I promise that once you get in my car, no one will dare to challenge you." His movements were indescribably elegant. Although his words were a little ruffian, it added to his unbridled charm. Wei Wei Bai couldn't help but say to the system, "If I get in his car, he won't challenge me. If I get in his car, will he challenge me?" The system said, "It's only 25 points. Calm down. 25 points." Her heart started to move. It wasn't something that could be done easily. With this kind of favorability, the host would be scared away if she was too anxious. Wei Wei Bai looked at the favorability and felt pity. Actually, she was just teasing the system. If she really got in his car, she would need to use stickers. In this world, she didn't believe that she wouldn't have enough time to use stickers. Wei Wei Bai was silent for a moment before slowly walking over. She didn't want to get in Oh Jin Ma's car. Oh Jin Ma stretched out his hand and felt awkward for a long time. Suddenly, he pulled open the door of the passenger seat and rushed forward. He grabbed Wei Wei Bai by the waist and stuffed her into the car. Wei Wei Bai was shocked. She only realized that Oh Jin Ma had already gotten in the car when she was fastened with a seatbelt. She closed the door, fastened her seatbelt, and immediately drove away. Her lips trembled. "Oh Jin Ma, what are you doing?" Oh Jin Ma's face darkened. "What can I do? I'm sending you. Do you think that after last night's sex, we won't interact anymore?" Wei Wei Bai was puzzled. "But we really don't interact anymore." Oh Jin Ma said, "Wrong. You're my fan. It's not right for an idol to send his fan on a show." Wei Wei Bai said, "I'm not your fan." Oh Jin Ma panicked. "I'll kiss you if you continue." Wei Wei Bai said, "Go ahead and kiss me." Oh Jin Ma was so shocked that he almost hit the railing by the roadside. He immediately stepped on the brakes and looked at Wei Wei Bai with a pale face. But he saw that she was calm, and there was a faint smile on her lips. It seemed like she was mocking him and didn't care about him at all. Oh Jin Ma's brain heated up. He suddenly pulled her over and lowered his head to kiss her lips. He just wanted to make the smile on her lips disappear. But her lips were still sweet. It was so sweet that it seeped into his heart. Ding! The male lead's favorability has increased to 30. Chapter 1168. Slap. A slap landed on his face. Oh Jin Ma woke up from his stupor. He widened his eyes and saw Wei Wei Bai's cold and angry gaze. It was as if a sharp knife was about to pierce his eyes. Oh Jin Ma finally reacted. He held her face with both hands. He used so much force that her face was deformed. Her face was deformed. He even kissed her. Oh Jin Ma's fingers froze. He then let go of her face and stepped back. His face was flushed and his heart was racing like an engine. He quickly started driving again and pretended that it was an accident. His hands and feet were shaking like he had Parkinson's disease. He was too flustered. Wei Wei Bai's voice suddenly sounded. "Oh Jin Ma." Oh Jin Ma thought that Wei Wei Bai was scolding him. He panicked and said, "You said that I would kiss you." He threw the blame to Wei Wei Bai so well that she was about to faint. After Oh Jin Ma said that, he also felt that he was shameless. She was obviously joking. If he really kissed her, he would be no different from a hooligan. Actually, he was just being impulsive. His mind had been filled with Wei Wei by these few days. She was like a dogskin plaster. He couldn't get rid of her. Even when he was writing songs, he started to have ideas. They were all songs about sweet and sour love. After he finished writing, he tore them up and wanted to stuff them into his mouth and swallow them. His songs were rarely about love. Even if they were written for others. Moreover, they were very cold and didn't have the sour taste of love. He didn't do this on purpose. He didn't have any love experience, so he couldn't come up with any good love songs. What was going on these few days? He hadn't written the last few songs for the new album. When he had ideas, all the songs he wrote were "Do you love me? Do you love me?" Rip, rip. He tore them up and threw them into the bin. As he tore them up, he got angry. He felt that Wei Wei Bai still treated him as a stranger. Why was he thinking about her so much? This was completely unfair. Therefore, when he saw Wei Wei Bai, he began to feel unbalanced. He wished that she was as flustered as he was. Wei Wei Bai carefully looked at Oh Jin Ma's face. Light and darkness crisscrossed in his amber eyes. His lips were pursed, and there was a terrifying sense of tension. A handsome and neutral face. The usual purity and beauty had disappeared, leaving only a slightly twisted expression of struggle. He couldn't be planning to kill her just because he kissed her, right? After all, This man was obsessed with the idea that he was an old virgin who didn't know anything about the world and could fly with wings. But he was very persistent. Wei Wei Bai pondered for a moment and felt that it was safer to capture the cat. So she said coldly, "I want to get off." Jean Ma stepped on the accelerator and pretended not to hear anything. Wei Wei Bai looked at him angrily. "This is considered kidnapping." Jean Ma's lips curled downwards, and he almost looked aggrieved. He said sullenly, "Other people don't even have the chance to sit in my car." Fans turning anti-fans were the most annoying. After Wei Wei Bai turned anti-fan, she looked at him as if he was a hooligan. She didn't show any signs of turning into a fan. Bai Wei Wei's delicate eyebrows furrowed, and she finally couldn't help but say, Jean Ma, I told you very clearly, I really don't want to have half a connection with you. Can you not appear in my life again?" These words were simply heart-wrenching. Jean Ma's heart was bleeding from the rejection. He moved his fingers and realized that they were terrifyingly stiff. Seeing that they were about to reach the recording location, he stopped at a corner where there weren't many people. Chapter 1169. Then, he took a few deep breaths to suppress the discomfort. Then, he didn't look at Wei Wei Bai. His face was as cold as ice as he looked at her. He said coldly, "Get out of the car." Wei Wei Bai immediately hugged the cat, opened the door, and got out of the car. She also took her guitar. She felt like he was a human trafficker who wanted to sell her. Jean Ma didn't expect Wei Wei Bai to run so fast. He couldn't help but look out of the car window. He saw Wei Wei Bai lower her head, pat the cat's head, and whisper something to it gently. She didn't turn back and walked straight to the corner. It was as if she was glad to be rid of him. When she turned the corner, the cat meowed softly. Wei Wei Bai immediately smiled. The girl's youthful and pure face had a pure and warm allure under the morning light. It directly hit one's heart. Then, she quickened her pace and disappeared around the corner. Jean Ma stayed in the car with both hands on the steering wheel. He lowered his eyelashes. His light-colored eyes started to darken. Because of the gloominess, there was even a hint of coldness. He was silent for a long time before the corners of his lips curled up. There was a hint of ridicule in his voice. What's so good about that stupid cat? I'm not in the cat. You're hugging a fake. What's so funny about it? She was so cold to him. She clearly met him when he was in cat form. So, he was the one she wanted to raise. Not the cat that didn't have any domineering aura, only knew how to eat cat food, and was so soft when it meowed. The system looked at the affection level of 30 and was disappointed that the host didn't live up to its expectations. When we were kissing just now, you should have pounced on Soar and given him a French kiss. Then, you should have given him a few stickers to ensure that the affection level would increase. Gina Mo was just a little chick with no experience in love. Once this kind of man had his first love, he would definitely want to die. In addition, he was a songwriter and had a lot of emotions. The favorable impression points wouldn't come and go as he pleased. Wei Wei Bai stroked the system's cat head. You don't understand. The older a virgin is, the more cautious he is. If I take the initiative, he will think that I am a scheming person and will be scared away. Jean Ma, that guy, don't be fooled by his appearance. No one knew how dark, sinister, and selfish he was inside. He was actually able to endure the temptation of hot pot, Lao Gan Ma, and all kinds of Sichuan dishes to maintain his angelic persona. What was even more frightening was that he didn't even watch porn. This kind of man's perseverance was astonishing to the point of being abnormal. How could such a freak be dealt with using common sense? Moreover, what he did to the original owner in the beginning, although he didn't know if the song was plagiarized. But he took the opportunity to suppress the original owner. She knew that this man was not a good person at all. Although he wasn't so bad as to commit murder and arson, his heart was definitely cold and dark. For this kind of man, gaining his trust was the key to gaining his favorability. Wei Wei Bai felt that the reward this time was too good. Without the cat, Jean Ma wouldn't have believed her if he hadn't seen the other side of her. He wouldn't have let down his guard against her. These 30 points of favorability were all due to Jean Mo gradually believing in her and started to rise. Wei Wei Bai stroked the cat's head and sighed. It's lonely, the system. Wei Wei Bai, it's so lonely to be invincible. Jean Ma was originally very difficult to deal with. Perhaps his acting skills could be compared to hers. But in the end, he was defeated by a cat. The recording location for Good Songs was on a certain floor of the TV station. The production team was rich and the stage effects were one of the best in the country. The sound equipment was in line with international standards. Is at https://www.sashu.com//. Chapter 1170. This program received a lot of attention when it started broadcasting. It was a program with a sponsorship fee of 300 million yuan. It was the station's most important trump card program. When Wei Wei Bai appeared with her guitar, the director immediately came over. Quickly go to the dressing room to put on your makeup and change your clothes. The station has held a meeting and decided to change the first song from a recording to a live broadcast. This simply did not give them any time to prepare. Many of the contestants were notified as soon as they arrived. Many of them turned pale. After all, the process of a live broadcast was different from a recording. If they were not mentally strong, they would be so nervous that they would break their voices when they could sing the song well. To increase the viewership ratings, the program team did not hesitate to sacrifice everything. Anyway, it was fine as long as there was a gimmick and news that could be hyped up. The director of this program could come up with all kinds of cheap tricks. The only thing that could be guaranteed was that everyone would sing for real and that it was an original song. When Wei Wei Bai heard his notification, she just looked at him indifferently and said calmly, "Okay, can you please point me to the dressing room?" The director looked at her in surprise. She was much calmer than the other contestants. After pointing her to the location, Wei Wei Bai carried her guitar and the cat and walked away unhurriedly. Although her back view was thin, it was unusually delicate and pleasing to the eye. The director gestured to a location where a recording camera was hidden behind a curtain. Although the program was called an original song talent show, however, it was more of a reality show. So from just now, the program had actually started. The reactions of every contestant who was notified of the live broadcast had already been broadcasted. This time, the station put in a lot of effort and put all their eggs in one basket to push the program to the top of the year. So the internet and the TV station broadcasted at the same time. There were many old viewers waiting in front of the live broadcast. There were also new viewers who were fooled by other advertisements. More of them were the fans of the little angel, Ojima. The fans were valiant, but Ojima did not appear. They had already posted 6 trending topics on the internet. Superstar Ojima participates in the second season of Hua Nation's Best Songs. Ojima is handsome again recently. I watched the songs just to see Ojima. At the beginning of the program, the contestants were notified to change the live broadcast location. I'm dying of laughter. The production team is really ruthless. The contestants are so scared that they're about to cry. There's a big sister who's so calm. Ah, she's pretty, and she's even carrying a cat. He looks a little familiar. Isn't this woman that shameless Wei Wei Bai who used MO to create hype? This caused an uproar. This kind of woman who relies on low-level hype and uses all kinds of underhanded methods just to become popular. How can the production team let her participate in the show? Come up with a good song, Wei Wei Bai. After seeing her, I don't even want to watch the show anymore. Is it because MO is here that she shamelessly came to the show? Stop her, get her out of here. Very soon, the angels formed a huge wave of resistance. At the top of the search list was Ojima participated in Good Songs. It was replaced by the trending topic of Wei Wei by being kicked out of the show. Wei Wei Bai became popular the moment the program was broadcasted. It was so red that it turned black. The media department on the Good Songs website immediately reported the matter to the production team. The director was extremely calm. Let them boycott. Anti-fans are the best publicity tools. Keep Wei Wei Bai. When the boycott threatened the show, Wei Wei Bai had not made a comeback, then eliminate her. Everyone was very familiar with the flow of the program. Chapter 1171. As for what Wei Wei Bai thought, a contestant with no background was not important to them at all. Wei Wei Bai was done with her makeup. Her makeup was much lighter than the others, because the makeup artist felt that her skin was good and did not need to be overly touched up. Wei Wei Bai felt that there were too many people who needed to do makeup, and it would be better to have one less person to do it with. She saw that the dressing room was very busy and walked out. The cat was placed with the production team, and there was a team that was in charge of the contestants' personal belongings. Pets were also under protection and management. Wei Wei Bai had just walked out when she saw a familiar figure walking over, surrounded by people. She stopped in her tracks, and a faint smile flashed across her face. But it disappeared very quickly. The woman who walked in front was wearing a red dress and thin, light-colored high heels. Her long hair was combed, and the ends were curled. She looked especially sweet. It was Jiang Ro. When Jiang Ro saw Wei Wei Bai, she stopped in her tracks and looked at her coldly. She suddenly took out her cell phone and opened Weibo. Then she smiled and said to her assistant beside her, "It's so funny. I heard that among the contestants who came to participate this time, there's an especially shameless one. She even sold her body for publicity." On the internet, there were all kinds of scandals about Wei Wei Bai. They appeared out of thin air from various anonymous sources. Ridiculous rumors like Wei Wei Bai had worked before, sold her body, and slept with the entire production team. They were all hyped up. Now, there are already 3 trending searches on Weibo to boycott Wei Wei Bai. Wei Wei Bai was expressionless as she looked at her with a calm gaze. Jiang Ro said sarcastically, "I wonder who she has to sleep with to become popular. She couldn't have slept with the entire production team, right? So dirty." The people around her immediately agreed and laughed at her. For a moment, Wei Wei Bai stood alone opposite Jiang Ro. But what was strange was that Bai Wei Wei didn't show any embarrassment. Instead, her eyes were indifferent as she looked at them indifferently. It was as if they were a bunch of clowns. Jiang Ro smiled and felt like a fool. She gripped her phone and glared at Wei Wei Bai. Because there were cameras everywhere, she didn't do anything too overboard. Her image as the little heavenly queen could not be destroyed. Jiang Ro smiled stiffly. "Let's go. I still have to sing for the finale." Then, she walked past Wei Wei Bai loftily. Wei Wei Bai said in a flat voice, "I'm really looking forward to your second hit original song." Jiang Ro's smile almost disappeared from her face. A trace of guilt flashed through her eyes as she glared fiercely at Wei Wei Bai. She sneered and said, "You will hear it very soon." Jiang Ro left with her head held high. Wei Wei Bai didn't feel bad about being looked down upon. She looked calm. "Tongzi, what is the song that Jiang Ro is going to sing for the finale?" The system said, "It's one of the 3 songs that you wrote, Confession." The system then told her about how the song that Ojimo wrote for her was stolen by Jiang Ro. Wei Wei Bai nodded. "You're saying that on her Weibo, she's going to broadcast the song that she sang during the live broadcast?" The system said, "Yes, that's the plan." Wei Wei Bai thought for a while before she smiled evilly. "If I don't kill her, I'll be letting down my talent." Her songwriting talent was bought with 50 life points. Jiang Ro wanted to take it away when she couldn't split it. How could she? Stingy Wei planned out how to deal with others before she walked forward. Below to record this reading record. Chapter 1172. Before she could take 2 steps, the system was about to remind her. A hand appeared from a dark corner and pulled her in. She was pressed against the wall. The light bulb was broken. In the dark, the man's tall and slender figure loomed over her. She could even smell the faint smell of cigarettes. Ojimo smoked, but he never inhaled because he would be smelled. It might violate his character setting. Wei Wei Bai looked up in surprise, but saw that he was looking down. His eyes were cold and even a little angry. "You just stood there and let him bully you?" The system said. "He was standing here the whole time. I was looking at Weibo and forgot to tell you." Wei Wei Bai expressed her understanding. The system was a dumb system and couldn't multitask. Her expression was still cold and indifferent. She had a delicate and gentle face. But to him, she never had a good expression. When she thought of him as a cat, she smiled gently at him, coaxed him, ate for him, and even sacrificed her life for him. Why was the difference so big? Ojimo felt bitter in his mouth. Bai Wei Wei said indifferently, "She stole my song. I can only shrink back. Don't say that she bullied me. Who would help me, unless I really went to sleep with a gold sponsor to bully back?" Ojimo muttered softly, "Sleep with a sugar daddy. Is that what you really think?" When he saw those scandals, his eyes turned red. Although he didn't believe it, just thinking about it made his heart ache. He didn't like this feeling of being pulled by Wei Wei Bai. Wei Wei Bai's words were like adding oil to the fire. Seeing that she didn't say anything, he asked, "Have you really thought about sleeping with a sugar daddy?" There were many in the entertainment industry. She was pretty and could easily climb into anyone's bed. Oh, Jinma's eyes started to distort. The cold shadow that had been hidden under his pure and beautiful appearance started to spread. The man in the shadows had a frighteningly sharp gaze. His exquisite face became much colder. He didn't look like an angel anymore. He looked like a devil. Wei Wei Bai didn't seem to notice the change and said indifferently, "This has nothing to do with you. Even if I sleep with him, he won't sleep with you." Just as she finished speaking, a finger pressed down hard on her lips. It was so hard that she frowned in pain. Then she heard a cold voice close to her ear. "If you didn't sleep with him, how do you know he won't sleep with me?" Wei Wei Bai's body stiffened. She couldn't believe that her voice to tremble. "Oh, Jinma, let go of me. I'm going to record." He finally saw a different expression on her face. A frightened expression was better than a polite and distant attitude. Oh, Jinma's heart was filled with viciousness. He didn't know that there were so many terrible thoughts hidden in his heart. She had been pretending to be an angel for so long that she thought she was really a little angel. Who knows what dirty swamps are hidden in his heart? Oh, Jinma even felt relaxed because this side of him was only shown to her. He actually believed her and wouldn't tell anyone. He smiled. His smile wasn't pure at all. He noticed that she kept shrinking her neck, trying to resist his closeness. Oh, Jinma pressed his lips against her neck. He felt her delicate skin and trembled in fear. "Tell me, if I bite here and leave a bite mark, the rumor of you sleeping with a sugar daddy will be confirmed." Wei Wei Bai immediately retorted, "I didn't." Oh, Jinma narrowed his eyes. His amber eyes were filled with anger. They were shockingly beautiful. "You can actually consider it." He paused for a moment before his tone became serious. "I've recently been thinking of keeping a young singer who can sing. Do you want to consider it?" Wei Wei Bai. This person's persona was broken. How shameless. Download mobile. Chapter 1173. She knew that Jinma wasn't as pure as he looked, but he wasn't a hooligan. Wei Wei Bai thought that since he could pretend to be an angel for so long, even if he was perverted, he definitely had a pure side to him. His warm breath was on her neck, and his fingers were pressing on her arm. He was so familiar with the way he held her captive. Oh my God, the pure side might have been eaten up by the pervert. Now, only the pervert was supporting him. Suddenly, they heard the sound of footsteps and the scriptwriter shouting that the show was about to start. Although they were close to the corner of the stairs, it was a blind spot due to the broken lights. But it was very likely that they would be seen by passers-by. Wei Wei Bai's body tensed up, and her breathing became more erratic. She suppressed her voice and said, "Oh, Jinma, let go of me. I'm going to go on the show." She didn't see that the man leaning on her had his eyes half closed, and his eyelashes were covering the heat in his eyes. He was always so close to her because of the cat. Her scent was so familiar and comfortable that he couldn't help but want to cling on to her and not leave. "Oh, Jinma." Her voice started to sound nervous. Oh, Jinma whispered hoarsely, "Do you still want to sleep with Sugar Daddy?" If she really wanted to sleep with him, he would be angry. Wei Wei Bai heard the sound of people walking in, and it seemed that someone from the show was calling her name. She finally couldn't hold it in and wasn't as calm as Oh, Jinma. "I'm just kidding. If I really had such thoughts, would I still be able to survive on instant noodles?" Oh, Jinma's throat tightened when he heard her mention instant noodles. Then, he gently let go of her. Wei Wei Bai felt that his grip on her loosened and immediately pushed him away. She glared at him and said, "You're so ridiculous." Then, she turned around and was about to leave, but before she could take 3 steps, a hand pressed on her shoulder. Wei Wei Bai was so shocked that her body trembled and she was about to explode in anger. However, she heard the man behind her slowly stretch out his fingers and tidy up her clothes. "If you go out like this, people will be suspicious." Wei Wei Bai stood still and did not resist his actions, but her voice was suppressed. It was obvious that she was very angry. "Oh, Jinma, if you just want to help Jung Ro get back at me, you've succeeded." If people find out that I'm with you, I don't need to participate in the show. Now, she was being condemned by the netizens on the internet. Ojima was still adding fuel to the fire. The man behind her was silent for a moment before saying in a muffled voice, "No one saw it." After saying those words, he gently pushed Zhang Xian. He pushed her out. Wei Weibai looked outside. Although there were people coming and going, no one was paying attention to them. This was even a blind spot for surveillance cameras. Ojima was indeed someone who had been in the entertainment industry for many years. He was indeed very familiar with this aspect. Wei Weibai did not turn around, but her footsteps still hesitated for a moment before she walked away. After she left, Ojima leaned against the dark wall and threw a cigarette but at his feet. He had bought the cigarette from a random small store. There were no surveillance cameras, and the seller was an old man in his 70s or 80s. He was very careful to avoid any danger that would make him the news. It was almost instinctive. He took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and held it in his hand as if he was thinking about something. His eyes were dark, and there was a hint of confusion. Wei Weibai was right. If he really did it for her good, he would not have come looking for her, even if he became her cat and received her care. Crossover system. Adonis, come here for the https://www. Sashu. com/crossover system. Adonis, come here for the full article. https://www. Sashu. com//crossover system. Adonis, come here for the full article. https://www. Sashu. crossover system. Adonis, come here for the full article on crossover system. Adonis, come here, comma. Chapter 1174. He could also give her a lot of convenience in other ways. After all, his status in the entertainment industry and the resources in his hands were enough to push her up. He didn't need to do anything. But why was he so unwilling and shamelessly stuck to her? He even said things like being a kept woman. He was already a piece of trash in Wei Weibai's heart, and now he was even more of a piece of trash. Ojima silently took a puff of his cigarette, then looked up and gently blew a smoke ring towards the sky. He actually didn't fail. What he liked to do the most during his rebellious period was to pretend to be a good student in front of others and do all the bad things that a bad student would do behind the scenes. And he hadn't been caught doing anything against him. He hadn't smoked in a long time, and in a moment of impulse, he actually bought cigarettes. This was simply unimaginable for someone like him who had restrained himself. Ojima couldn't help but smile. His body was a little loose as he leaned against the wall, absent-mindedly smoking. Could it be that his rebellious period hadn't passed yet? So he liked to bully. He was starting to like the girl he liked. Ding! The male lead's favorability has increased to 35. The system listened to the favorability notification. You're not a kept woman? Why did his favorability increase? Could it be that he feels that you're a clean and honest lotus flower, and that's why his admiration for you increased? Wei Weibai was holding her guitar and wiping it. She calmly shook her head. No, it should be that Ojima found out and started to like me. 35 favorability, it meant that he started to like her. This liking wasn't deep, but Ojima was a little special. Even if it wasn't deep, it had to be compared. He was a super 10,000-year-old virgin. He was also a selfish, persistent, and perverted pervert who insisted on his pure image. This caused him to have no experience in love, and he was a super stone man who had never been moved by any woman. This kind of man, once he liked someone, even if it wasn't deep, it was very passionate and proactive. Although Wei Weibai was a strategy cat, she had also done research on Ojima. The system looked at the host's calm and indifferent appearance. It felt that the host had matured again. The broadcast of the good song began. The first contestant to go on stage was viciously criticized by the judges. For the sake of viewership ratings, other than the comedic host, all the judges had to do their best. As for the remaining two, one was in charge of venomous words, while the other was in charge of praising. It was all a ploy. The second contestant went on stage and sang a fast song. Because of his nervousness, he made a few wrong intonations. Halfway through the song, the judges stopped with a ding, 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 ding sound. The contestant's face paled as he was eliminated. The elimination system of the competition was particularly cruel. Although there was a revival round, the conditions to enter the revival round were also harsh. Most of them were eliminated on the spot. Wei Wei Bai was originally ranked 7th. However, the production team informed her that she would be the last to appear. As for the last one, the judges were all very tired. If the song was not amazing enough, they could be eliminated at any time. Wei Wei Bai did not mind and waited quietly. Meanwhile, the production team also broadcasted what happened behind the station, including the crying faces of the eliminated contestants. The contestants who entered the second round were wild with joy. Also, Wei Wei Bai was very indifferent, so indifferent that no one could hate her. Regardless of whether it was the change of position or order of appearance, she was exceptionally cooperative and did not have a trace of dissatisfaction. Even the staff felt that her attitude was very good, while the internet was crazily boycotting Wei Wei Bai. A small group of passers-by, fans, began to appear. I still like that little sister number 7. I feel comfortable just looking at her. To the person above, +1. Out of all the contestants, she is the most pleasing to the eye. +10089. Chapter 1175. However, the passers-by fans were quickly drowned out by the Angel group's criticism. Those above are all trash. A woman like Wei Wei Bai is not worth liking. She has no talent and only knows how to create hype. Her singing must be terrible. Yes. If she really knows how to sing, how can she create hype? It must be terrible. She will definitely be eliminated. I don't think she will be eliminated. Didn't she sleep with a sugar daddy? Ojima looked at the comments for a long time and finally called the higher-ups of Sanxing. The team in charge of my publicity, send someone. Yes, I am useful. He started to collect shares of Sanxing in his early years. By the time Sanxing reacted, most of the company's shares had been silently eaten away by him. Hence, he had absolute autonomy in the company now. After the call, he opened his Weibo. After a moment of silence, he finally wrote a Weibo. What does it feel like to have your heart stirred? After posting, he realized that his fingers were trembling. He had maintained his image of being pure and innocent for 10,000 years. Now it was starting to collapse. He realized that he was still nervous. He was nervous that he was different. Now, all the praise he received would become a sharp blade to attack him. Ojima took a deep breath and stuffed his phone into his pocket. If he did not attract the attention of his fans, then Wei Wei Bai would always be in the center of the storm. This was the first time that Ojima was so considerate of someone. Thinking of Wei Wei Bai's cold face, he lowered his head and stepped on the cigarette butt. He snorted. There are many people who want to be my mistress. You don't know what's good for you. But she was not tempted. He was actually quite assured. She was not tempted by his conditions. Who in the entertainment industry could tempt her? Thinking of this, Ojima smiled. Then he left the spot with light footsteps and even forgot that his image was starting to collapse. In his simple Weibo post, it instantly covered all the news. Wei Wei Bai, good song live stream. Little diva singing at the end. Everything disappeared. There was only one thing on the hot search. Ojima has so many likes. No matter how turbulent the internet was. It was also time for Wei Wei Bai to go on stage. She was still chatting with the system. I'm good looking, my compositions are top-notch, and my singing is top-notch. I feel that Ojima's position is in danger. The system was chatting on Weibo. Yes. You're the best. When Wei Wei Bai heard this, even the system was convinced by her. She was suddenly full of confidence. She was the last contestant. When it was time to go on stage, Jiang Ro was sitting below the stage with a smug look on her face. Jiang Ro was behind Wei Wei Bai. However, Wei Wei Bai was here to participate in the competition. She was invited to participate in the singing program. This time, the new song that she had prepared was the one written by Ojima. When she first received this song from Ojima, there were no lyrics. She had even specially asked Gunnar to write the lyrics. Although the song didn't have lyrics, it had a name. It was called Confession. She had also called it Confession. The song would be written under Ojima's name, so it would be considered stolen. Ojima would definitely not be angry if he saw that she had specially written the song for him. Of course, the lyrics were written by her. Jiang Ro could almost imagine that if this song became popular again, her status would definitely rise. She didn't know why, but ever since she changed managers, she never saw Oh Jinma again. She never saw Oh Jinma again, and even those frozen cards were not restored. Jiang Ro had a bad feeling in her heart, but she still suppressed it. In front of Oh Jinma, she was definitely the perfect sister. There wouldn't be any mistakes. Is at https://www.sashu.com. Chapter 1176. She looked around. Oh Jinma was one of the judges, but he only appeared in the second round. Today, he was only here to show his face at the end of the show. So Jiang Ro knew that Oh Jinma was here too. But there were too many people, so she didn't see him at all. Jiang Ro saw Wei Wei Bai on stage, but she looked down on her. What good songs could she have? So she didn't pay attention to Wei Wei Bai. But suddenly, a familiar prelude shattered her hearing. What was this? Why did this song sound so familiar? Jiang Ro turned around abruptly and saw the stage. She sat quietly in front of the microphone in the middle of the huge and gorgeous stage. She was holding a guitar, wearing a simple long dress and a white long-sleeve top. Her long hair cascaded down her back. She lowered her eyes, holding a plectrum with her slender and fair fingers, sliding across the guitar like flowing water. A series of simple yet beautiful notes appeared. The notes connected into a line, and she spoke tirelessly. Although it was a confession, it was so calm and peaceful. Occasionally, there was a hint of nervousness, but it was all in the melody. Delicate and beautiful, it was so warm to the bone. Wei Wei Bai gently hummed the prelude, and the sound was so comfortable that people's ears were about to fall asleep. Then she opened her mouth, and her beautiful voice soared. Holding your beauty in my hands, I'm careful not to break it. It's easy to love you, but a confession makes me back off. The lyrics were simple and straightforward. It was a sweet cookie, but it made the tired judges and audience immediately straighten their backs and listen carefully. The song, the lyrics, and even the person singing. It was just right. This kind of temperament swept away the impetuous noise of the competition. There was only a simple guitar and a girl. He listened to her sing a stumbling but sweet confession journey. The stage was so big, but her voice stole everyone's attention. There was a kind of light, not necessarily the sun, but it was impossible to ignore and even made people feel happy. This was a natural stage sense, an innate talent. Oh Jinma had just walked behind the scenes when he heard her singing. His footsteps paused, and his heart skipped a beat. Was this song going to confess to him? After Wei Wei Bai finished her song, she got off the stage and glanced at Jiang Ro, who was sitting below. Jiang Ro's expression changed. Her fingers trembled as she looked at Wei Wei Bai in disbelief. How could this be? How could a song composed by Oh Jinma be in Wei Wei Bai's hands? The song she was going to sing was Wei Wei Bai's song. If Wei Wei Bai sang first, and she sang later, wouldn't she be considered plagiarist? History repeated itself, but this time, her and Wei Wei Bai's positions were reversed. Jiang Ro was so angry that she took out her phone and called Oh Jinma. Did Oh Jinma give her the song? Impossible. She knew how much her brother hated this woman. So Wei Wei Bai was the one who stole it. It must be. Her brother was so unguarded. It was possible that Wei Wei Bai stole the song. The call did not go through. Jiang Ro started to panic. What should she do? Wei Wei Bai sang the song. As for what she was going to sing later, she had no choice but to ask her manager for help. She had to negotiate with the production team to change the song. Luckily, her new song had not been released on Weibo yet. Otherwise, it would be the same as Wei Wei Bai's song, and she would be accused of plagiarism again. After Wei Wei Bai walked out, she said to the system, Tongzi, help Jiang Ro release her new song. The system nodded. Okay, I've helped her release it. It was familiar with Weibo, so it went behind the scenes. It helped Jiang Ro release the song. It also changed the song's composer to Jiang Ro. This time, Jiang Ro was the one who wrote the song. Chapter 1177. On the internet, fans who were crusading against Wei Wei Bai had been watching the live broadcast. They wanted to see Wei Wei Bai make a fool of herself. In the end, it was too good, too warm, too sweet. What should they do when they were going to be anti-fans? This song is not bad, even though the singer is ugly. Carrot, don't be blind. How can that be called ugly? Did your aesthetic standards get into a car accident? Ugly is ugly. Not only is she ugly, but she also has a bad character. She's a kept woman. You saw that she's a kept woman. Where's the evidence? You're being anti-fans. A new round of public opinion war was about to begin. In the end, Jiang Rou's new song was released. It gave anti-fans, fans, passers-by, and onlookers a shock. This song was also called Confession, although the lyrics were different. But the tune was basically the same as Wei Wei Bai's song. And what was even more tragic was that Wei Wei Bai's song actually sounded better than Jiang Rou's. Being good was one thing. Jiang Rou's new song was released even later than Wei Wei Bai's, and the song's author was Jiang Rou. As for Bai Weiwei's good songs, the lyrics were also her own. Who on earth wrote this song? For a moment, everyone on the internet was dumbfounded. They had just experienced the impact of Jin Ma's budding love. The bomb of Jiang Rou and Wei Wei Bai clashing songs came again. The trending searches were so busy. Jiang Rou still didn't know what was happening on the internet. She heard the host start to introduce her. After a series of polite compliments, the host said, "Let's welcome the little diva Jiang Rou to bring us her new song, Confession." Jiang Rou was already smiling as she went on stage with a microphone. But just as she was about to sing, the host's introduction made her freeze. Confession? Didn't she ask the program team to change the song? How could there be a mistake in the introduction? Surprisingly, the song was not changed. The program group's orchestra began to play the same accompaniment as Wei Wei Bai's Confession. Jiang Rou stood on the stage with a pale face. This was a live broadcast. She had no choice but to open her mouth and sing. She stared at everyone's puzzled eyes and began to sing. Because she was too flustered, the song was not interesting at all. This song had a gentle tune to begin with. What was beautiful about it was that kind of light sweetness, but it was also especially heartwarming. Jiang Rou did not sing at all, and compared to Wei Wei Bai's song, the lyrics were too cumbersome. Jiang Rou held back her anger and finished singing the song. Then, she didn't finish singing. Instead, he stood on the stage and glared angrily at the audience. I was originally very happy to be here today because it was the release day of my new song. But I realized that my song was stolen by someone. How could such a vile contestant participate in this show? Everyone looked at Wei Wei Bai, who was below the stage. Wei Wei Bai looked back indifferently. Then, with a push of her hand, she jumped onto the stage. She did not have stage fright at all and took the microphone from the host. Then, she walked in front of Jiang Rou and looked at her coldly. Coincidentally, I was also very happy today because it was my first time participating in a show, but I realized that my song was stolen by someone. Such a vile thief. And she's actually a heavenly queen of the music industry? This was a confrontation. In an instant, the entire venue and the audience watching the live broadcast exploded. Jiang Rou's expression was fierce. Wei Wei Bai, you know very well how this song came about. It couldn't have been written by you. Wei Wei Bai was extremely calm. It really was written by me. Don't tell me it was written by you. Jiang Rou was so angry that she couldn't calm down. Suddenly, she saw Jin Ma below the stage. She immediately shouted aggrievedly, "Brother, someone stole your song. This song was clearly written by you, and you were the one who gave it to me. This woman stole your song." Everyone looked at Jin Ma, who was below the stage. The director was also excited. "Quick, quick, give the camera to Jin Ma." Jin Ma stood under the lights. His amber eyes reflected the light, and there was a clear coldness to them. His skin was as white as porcelain. He should have had an innocent and beautiful face, but at this moment, there was a hint of coldness. Then, he slowly revealed a smile. The coldness in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by an innocent look. His thin lips moved slightly. His voice was so gentle, but the words that came out of his mouth were extremely cruel. "I've never written this song, and I've never given it to you, sister." Chapter 1178. Jiang Rou's ears started ringing. She staggered a few steps and her legs almost turned to jelly on the stage. Her voice trembled as she said, "Brother, this song was clearly written by you. I still have the original manuscript." Oh Jinma's thick and long eyelashes drooped down, and a shadow appeared under his eyes. However, his amber eyes were still beautiful and puzzled. He tilted his head a little absent-mindedly and habitually used his most innocent and pure side to face the camera. His voice was gentle and at a loss. "Original manuscript? Oh, you mean the piece of paper you picked up on the floor?" Jiang Ro trembled. She had stolen it, but he had said that he had picked it up. Her brother still felt sorry for her. Her expression immediately turned joyful. "Yes, brother. Didn't you write that song? It's your handwriting." She had to quickly put that piece of paper on Weibo to prove her innocence. Oh Jinma lowered his head and seemed to be thinking about something. Then he seemed to remember something and casually tugged at his turtleneck shirt, revealing his fair neck and Adam's apple. He was seductive but unaware. His actions carried a hint of innocence. People couldn't help but follow his every movement. He made sure that everyone's gaze was captured by him. The man pretended to be suddenly enlightened and looked up with a smile. "Sister, I think you've got it wrong. That song was clearly written by Wei Bai. Aren't I the judge for the second round of good songs? Her songs were handed to the program team in advance, and I just happened to see them." He paused for a moment, and his smile disappeared as if he had finally reacted. "I thought that her songs were very good, so I wrote them down from memory. I think that her songs are very beautiful and can even inspire me." These words directly elevated Wei Bai's status. Even Ojinma admitted that the songs could inspire him. It was enough for Wei Bai's fans to brag about it. But Ojinma didn't seem to know the effect of this sentence. He finally looked at Jiang Ro on the stage. His expression changed from puzzlement to surprise. "You actually took the song I put at home without my permission and published it as a new song. How could you?" Ojima paused and frowned. Then his expression became sad. "Don't you hate people who plagiarize and steal? How could he do such a thing?" Ojima was still on Weibo just now. Of course, he knew about Jiang Ro's new song. When he heard the prelude, he was about to explode with anger. Isn't this Wei Bai's song? Then he thought about it and realized that she might have taken the song that he had written down from memory the last time she entered his house. He was so used to being casual that he didn't notice her little movements. If Wei Bai had not sung this song first, would she have to bear the bad name of plagiarism again? Oh Jinma suppressed the sneer on his face. He wanted to change the song at the last minute, but he did not agree. Would the host offend him for Jiang Ro? Jiang Ro's face was pale. She almost couldn't hold the microphone, and her whole body was trembling. She saw that everyone below the stage was looking at her coldly. She couldn't help but tremble as she looked at Ojinma. But she realized that her brother, who she thought was naive and sweet, was standing below the stage. His cold, thin lips were slightly curved as he gave her a mocking smile. That smile disappeared in a flash. Only she saw it. Jiang Ro widened her eyes in disbelief. Her heart instantly fell into an ice cellar. On the other hand, there was a temporary silence on the internet. The netizens who had regained their senses completely collapsed. They flooded Jiang Ro's Weibo like a tidal wave. "Damn, what did I just hear? Jiang Ro, you actually plagiarized?" Chapter 1179. I can't believe it. I've been your fan for so many years, but now you're turning against me. Get lost. You're disgusting. But Ojima's Weibo was full of comforting comments. "I didn't expect Jiang Ro to steal your song and put her name on it. Mo, don't be sad." The one above, she stole Wei Bai's song, but Jiang Ro misunderstood that it was Mo's song. "I didn't expect Mo to be so righteous. If it's not her song, she won't be biased even if it's her sister. In that case, Wei Bai is also considered talented. Mo acknowledges her. Last time, she said that Jiang Ro stole her song. Is there any evidence? I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel that Jiang Ro's red song is very similar to Wei Bai's song this time. But the completion of the confession is much better than that of love. Could it be that the previous song was also stolen by Jiang Ro? Slowly, under the guidance of some internet trolls, the topic started to turn to suppressing Jiang Ro. praising Wei Wei Bai's direction of public opinion. And the internet trolls behind the scenes were a little curious. Why is brother Mo suppressing his sister and supporting Wei Wei Bai? The leader of the internet trolls said, "Shut up. Take your money and do more. Don't compare." The internet trolls, they let the public opinion on the internet explode. After singing the song, Wei Wei Bai didn't care. She ran to hug her cat and then left the TV station with her guitar. At the end of the first round of the live broadcast, her back view was seen calmly leaving. Under the setting sun, it was indescribably cool and calm. The camera zoomed out, and she gradually disappeared. Passerby fans, loyal fans. With just this back view, Wei Wei Bai made the small group of passerby fans bigger and bigger, and then directly jumped to loyal fans. Her Weibo fans also increased rapidly. With public opinion, traffic was king. She started to become popular in just the first round of the program, Good Songs. He was slowly being washed clean. Many people who had a bad impression of her started to like her. All of this was due to Wei Wei Bai's strength and Jiang Rou's courting death. More importantly, it was Jinma's internet water army that was manipulating the situation. He was a superstar in the entertainment industry and a major shareholder of Sanqing. Jinma was very familiar with this set of moves. When Jinma saw that the public opinion was starting to turn for the better, he called Sanqing Corporation and called for a meeting. The content of the meeting was to sign a contract with Wei Wei Bai and give all of Jiang Rou's resources to her. As for Jiang Rou, her contract was terminated, her reputation was tarnished, her resources were cut off, and the last step was to kick her out of the entertainment industry. The higher-ups of Sanqing who were in the meeting felt a chill in their hearts. The way they looked at Jinma started to change. Even though Jinma had used thunderous means to acquire Sanqing's shares, he wanted to make Sanqing his master. But most people still had a good impression of Jinma. They felt that he had a good personality. Apart from the shares, Jinma was very gentle and didn't seem to care about anything. He was very compatible with his angelic image. After a long time, everyone felt that his personality was still very good. But this series of suppression and tarnishing of Jiang Rou was simply like a demon. Although these were all conventional methods in the entertainment industry, when Jinma did it, it seemed especially ruthless. Jinma only heaved a sigh of relief after doing all of this. He stared at his phone and wanted to call Wei Wei Bai several times, but he didn't know what reason to use. He had done so much to settle the public opinion for her and started to reopen the case of her song being stolen by Jiang Rou. He also wanted to take revenge on Jiang Rou. Everything was carried out according to his plan in an orderly manner. Chapter 1180. He even had a draft for Wei Wei Bai to become a superstar. But Wei Wei Bai didn't know about this. Jinma scratched his head in frustration. He had a pitiful expression on his face. This was the first time he had done so much for a woman. But she didn't know. He wasn't a real angel. He still cared about his own gains and losses. Jinma mustered up his courage and started to key in the numbers. He knew her phone number. He only knew it because he had become her cat. After dialing the number, he held the phone tightly. His palms were sweaty. His heart started to beat faster, and his fingers started to tremble uncontrollably. What should he say later? He should be high and mighty and let her know that everything she had now was given to her by him. Then, he should tell her in a condescending manner that he wanted to sign her. He would make her famous. She would definitely be happy. She might even start to worship him and become his fan. Jinma couldn't help but smile when he thought of this. The call went through. A faint voice came from the other end of the line. "Hello, is this takeout?" Was it takeout? Was it takeout? Jinma's good-looking lips twitched, and he pursed his lips. Did she forget his phone number? Didn't she spend a lot of effort to get his number when she was still a fan? It had only been a few days, and he had become a takeout. Maybe it was because Jinma didn't say anything. Wei Wei Bai's voice sounded apologetic. "I'm sorry, I didn't order takeout. You must have the wrong number." After that, she seemed to want to hang up. Jinma was hot-headed. "Wei Wei Bai, it's me." Wei Wei Bai was silent for a while. May I know who you are?" "Who you are? Who you are?" "Damn you, it's only been a few minutes." She had even forgotten his voice. Jinma's fingers started to tremble. It wasn't because he was nervous, but because he was so angry. His eyes hardened as he tugged at his turtleneck and unbuttoned a few buttons on his white shirt. Then he leaned against the wall and gritted his teeth. Who do you think I am? Ah. This questioning tone was like that of a man who had been cuckolded, and it was the kind that was particularly irritable. There was a 3-second pause. Wei Wei Bai's voice instantly turned cold. Oh, Jean Ma, how do you know my phone number? He was cold, but she was colder than him. He demanded, and she demanded back even more angrily than he. Oh, Jean Ma furrowed his brows and pursed his lips into a tight line. There was a frightening gloom in his light-colored eyes. He sneered. Why? Is your phone number so special that it's unique in the universe? Why can I know it? After a moment of silence, Wei Wei Bai said indifferently, Yes, it's really unique. Who had more than one phone number? How do you make a call if you don't have one copy? Oh, Jean Ma. He was rendered speechless by her words. Wei Wei Bai said coldly, If you have something to say, say it. If not, I'm hanging up. Oh, Jean Ma felt a lump of anger in his chest that made him feel extremely uncomfortable. He leaned against the wall with one hand in his pocket. Strands of hair fell under his eyes, making him feel a little uncomfortable. Oh, Jean Ma hated her cold attitude. It was as if she didn't care about anything he did. He thought that she would be happy just now, but she ruthlessly shattered his thoughts. Oh, Jean Ma's beautiful eyes were filled with anger and embarrassment. Sanqing wants to sign you. Are you happy? He drily tossed the best gift to buy Wei Wei like a brick. Link to the https://www.sashu.com/link to the https://www.sashu.com link to the https://www.sashu.com link to the https://m Sashu. Com at the bottom to record this chapter. Chapter 1181. Sanqing was doing very well, and all the artists in the company were popular. Even Jiang Rou would be doing very well if he didn't suppress her. Sanqing would rather not have anything than to have something substandard. They didn't sign any newcomers this year. Everyone knew that once Sanqing signed a newcomer, it would be very popular. They were all supporting them in the direction of becoming popular, so they definitely did not lack resources. Once Sanqing took a liking to them, they would soar to the sky. Wei Wei Bai didn't say anything on the other end of the phone. Oh, Jean Ma thought that she was happy and couldn't help but mock her. Why don't you ask why Sanqing likes you? Hurry up and ask. I'll tell you if you ask. Who is so influential and capable? Wei Wei Bai said calmly. Oh, I'm not signing with Sanqing. Bye. After that, she hung up. There was no sound on the other end of the phone. A cold wind blew, and a few pieces of paper rolled past Oh Jean Ma's feet. Oh Jean Ma stood with his head down, and his expression was still stiff. He held the phone a little further away in disbelief and looked at it. Then, he put it to his ear again. There was still no sound. She was really hung up, rejected, and abandoned. Sanqing wanted to sign her. Sanqing, the biggest, best, and strongest company. She didn't want it? Oh Jean Ma stared at the phone for a long time and suddenly smashed it. Smashing it wasn't enough. He even stepped on it. Then, he said coldly, Wei Wei Bai, you'll regret it. You don't want the resources I gave you. Are you planning to sleep with a sugar daddy? In this era, there were no resources to support. Geniuses couldn't be popular in the entertainment industry. Popularity and traffic were enough to push any genius down. She didn't want him. How could she become popular? How could she promote her own songs? Rely on the netizens? Don't joke. Without a good company, she wouldn't even be able to sell a decent album. Oh Jean Ma turned around decisively. His exquisite and handsome face was filled with cold anger. After taking 2 steps, he silently walked back. He picked up the phone again and took out the SIM card. Wei Wei Bai must have remembered this phone number. He stuffed the card into his pocket and smashed the phone again. Then, he turned around and left. He had decided to forbid all the companies from signing her. He would let her hit a wall and bleed profusely. When the time came, she would come and beg him. Then he He asked her to imitate a cat's meow for him. When Ojima drove to the front of the house, a figure rushed out. He slammed on the brakes and looked up. He saw that it was Jiang Ro, who was looking at him with tears in her eyes. Ojima looked at her indifferently. Then he reached out and touched the back of his neck. The pain of being stabbed into his flesh by Jiang Ro was still there. He smiled coldly and suddenly stepped on the accelerator. The car suddenly moved forward. Jiang Ro looked at him in horror and quickly jumped to the side. The car drove past, splashing mud all over her body. Jiang Ro trembled all over as she watched the car enter the garage. She could not believe that the cold and handsome man sitting in the car just now was. It was her gentle brother. Ojima got out of the car and opened the door as if nothing had happened. Jiang Ro had already chased after him. She cried pitifully and grabbed his arm. "Brother, are you angry with me?" Ojima paused and looked at her hand. "Let go." Jiang Ro said, "No, I won't." "Brother, what's wrong with you? I'm your sister. How can you treat me like this?" Ojima did not say anything, but looked up at her. His amber eyes were especially cold and sharp when he looked at her. The download text is at https://www.sashu.com. Chapter 1182. Jiang Ro's hands trembled, and she let go of his hand. Ojima entered the house, and Jiang Ro followed him carefully. He frowned and looked at her. "I don't want to see you these days. You can leave now." If it weren't for the fact that they were blood-related, he would have kicked her out. Jiang Ro smiled pitifully. "Brother, what's wrong with you?" Ojima laughed coldly. "Why? Have you forgotten what happened at Sanching back then? You rejected me. I think you should be the one who rejected them." Jiang Ro froze, and her face turned even paler. Now that he knew about what she had done back then, her image as a good sister would be destroyed. Ojima hated her even more for being so cruel and merciless to kill him when he was still a cat. But he never intended to tell her this secret. Ojima's face was expressionless. His eyes were cold and indifferent. "Don't call me brother in the future. Leave this place in half a minute. Otherwise, I'll ask the security to chase you away." With that, he turned around and walked upstairs impatiently. He was covered in dust. He wanted a shower and change his clothes. Jiang Ro stared blankly at his back view as he left. Ojima was serious. She knew that it was over. Why couldn't he accept that she had lied to him? Without Ojima's support, she was done for. Jiang Ro trembled as she knelt down. She thought about her lost future and those frozen cards. And Ojima's seduction toward her. Her gaze turned vicious. She took out a bag of medicinal powder from her pocket. She had planned to use this medicinal powder on Wei Wei Bai. It was a drug that could cause estrus. It was stronger than traditional aphrodisiacs. She didn't expect that it would be used on Ojima. She had planned to feed some to Wei Wei Bai and then push a few models to ruin her reputation and make her leave the entertainment industry. In the end, she didn't manage to carry out her plan in time. She was finished. Jiang Ro knew Ojima's habit. He liked to drink water. Furthermore, it was not boiled water, but a very expensive brand of mineral water. She opened the fridge and saw that there was only one bottle of mineral water left. Today was Saturday. Only on Sundays would the assistant send in new mineral water by air. Once a week, it was fixed. On the other hand, Ojima drank more water and would usually finish all the mineral water the day before. She looked at the bottle of mineral water coldly, then took it out and opened it. She poured the powder into it. As long as he took a sip, he would also lose his mind. If she couldn't be his sister, just be his woman. If it wasn't for the fact that she was his younger sister, she would have done everything she could to get him. She was not his sister. Back then, her father cheated on her and had Ojima. For the sake of his reputation, Ojima's father didn't want him and even chased away the mistress. But because Jiangla was angry, she also cheated. And then there was her. Even her mother did not know who her biological father was. This matter was successfully hidden from Ojima's father. This secret was only known by her and her mother. Ojima didn't know either. He had always treated her as his biological sister and treated her very well. She couldn't bear to reveal this fact. Even if she had feelings for him, she could only endure it. Jiang Ro stuffed the bottle of mineral water into the fridge and closed the door. Then, she revealed a sinister smile. When you find out that the person you are hugging is your own sister, you won't be able to get rid of me. She knew that he wasn't her biological brother. But Ojima didn't know. She wanted him to take the initiative to hug her. Then, he would blame himself for violating ethics and could only continue to treat her gently out of guilt. Jiang Ro went out to relax Ojima's heart. She looked at the door with a cold smile and waited silently. After Ojima finished showering, he casually walked downstairs in a pair of casual pants and a simple round-neck t-shirt. Jiang Ro left. He didn't care. He opened the fridge and took a sip of mineral water out of habit. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. Why was the bottle of mineral water so easy to open? Ojima frowned and looked at the bottle. It seemed that someone had opened it. Jiang Ro waited for about half an hour before the door suddenly opened. She immediately ran over happily and wanted to hug Ojima. But just as she approached, a foot kicked her in the chest. She was kicked out. Ojima didn't even look at her. He quickly got into the car and drove away. Chapter 1183. He closed his eyes and opened them. He saw Wei Wei by struggling to put her hands on his body and prop herself up. She seemed to have touched his upper body and blushed. Then, she bit her lip and got up from his body. Ojima stared at her disheveled appearance with a cat's eyes. His saliva was about to flow out. He reached out his paw and touched his mouth silently. He felt a few strands of whiskers. Wei Wei Bai stood up with difficulty. She hurriedly tidied her clothes. Then, she gave him a hard kick. Bastard, pervert, hooligan, rapist. I'm going to call the police to arrest you. With that said, Wei Wei Bai picked up the phone that he had dropped. Just as she was about to make the call, she felt a grip on her feet. Then, she heard a soft meow. She looked down and realized that it was Ojima looking at her with teary eyes. He hugged her ankles with his two front paws and rubbed his face against her trousers. Meow, don't call the police to arrest me. I'm very obedient. Wei Wei Bai. After turning into a cat, you don't even have a human's dignity. It's against the rules to act cute. Ojima saw that her body stiffened and immediately rubbed his body against hers. However, he rubbed against the bandage and grimaced in pain. Wei Wei Bai saw him like this and immediately bent down to carry him. Her soft skin and familiar scent made him a little unable to take it. Although a cat couldn't do anything, he decisively nestled in her arms and revealed a satisfied expression. But after a few seconds, Wei Wei Bai put him in the cat bed and stroked his head. Little Shu, be good. After I call the police, we'll leave this city. She looked down slightly with a tinge of sadness in her eyes. I don't even dare to hope for anything anymore. How can he still bully me like this? Ojima's body stiffened and he looked at her helplessly. Meow, no. He wasn't bullying her. He was just too upset and his mind was filled with her, which was why he had risked his life to come here. He immediately reached out his paw, wanting to tell her this, but she couldn't understand the cat's voice. When Ojima was anxious and angry, looking at the paper on the ground, he suddenly had a terrible idea. He could actually use his claws to write. Wait, what should he write? Was it written that he was Ojima? He acted cute with his cat legs, shamelessly rubbed against her chest, and even saw her naked body. Once she found out that he was Ojima, even if he was beaten to death, it would not be enough to vent his anger. Ojima retracted his hand silently. He must not let her know who he was. Right now, in her eyes, he was an attempted rapist. If she knew that he was a cat demon, she would have known that he was a cat demon. Then, he would be a wretched and shameless voyeur and a terrifying cat demon. Wei Wei Bai wouldn't ask a Taoist priest to take him away, right? Ojima slapped his face with his paws in frustration. His paws were too small, and his face was too big. No matter how much he slapped, it was inappropriate. He sighed. He was indeed a hooligan today. He couldn't blame Wei Wei Bai for wanting to run away. His current power was indeed a little too much for her. Which woman wouldn't be afraid of someone molesting her for no reason? Even he would be afraid of that. Ojima regained his senses, and his heart of shame surged up. He stole a glance at her in embarrassment. He realized that she was already dialing a number on her phone. If she really called the police, he reckoned that before he could do anything, Wei Bai would be crushed by public opinion. Ojima knew a little about his fans. Just as he was about to reach out his paws to slap her phone away, suddenly, a groan of discomfort sounded. Address of the full article: https://www.sashu.com. Download of the full article: https://www.sashu.com. Address of the mobile article: https://m.sashu.com//. Chapter 1184. Do you have any objections? What objections can there be? It's all up to you. No matter how intense the discussions were in the higher management of Sanxing, the final decision was up to Ojima. As the biggest shareholder and the biggest cash cow of the company, it was no different to say that he was the king of the company. He really wanted to do something. Sanxing could not find anyone to stop him. Ever since Ojima suppressed Jiang Ro, many of the higher management came to their senses. Although Ojima had an angel persona, but persona was not a part of his nature. Don't look at how soft and pure Ojima has been all these years. He was also the most popular celebrity in the country for doing charity. But could this represent Ojima's nature? In the past, Ojima did not care about anything, so he gave the impression that his character was not bad. Now, no one dared to provoke him. A man who was so ruthless to his own sister. His persona was completely destroyed. After Ojima notified the company, he hesitated for a while and made another call. He asked the company to send someone to buy songs from Wei Bai. He could not let her starve. Her money went to him, the one who raised the cat. If she did not have an income, she might really have to leave the city. After buying the songs, Ojima felt a little guilty. Was he secretly raising her? When this thought came to Ojima, he could not help but tremble. He even felt that he was a little crazy. Could it be that this was his first time liking a girl? That was why he could not suppress his feelings. Ojima had no experience. His mind was in a mess, but he knew that he treated Wei Bai differently. He drove back and planned to go to the meeting after taking a shower and eating. The reporter who took the photos secretly had probably submitted the photos. He needed to have a clear attitude after the photos were out. He had to prepare the public relations and all kinds of fake reviewers. Ojima drove the car into the garage. Just as he walked out of the garage, a woman squatting in front of his door made him frown. He walked over with an expressionless face. Jiang Ro immediately rushed over. She had been squatting outside for an entire night, and her entire body was in an extremely sorry state. His clothes were from last night, and there was a large bruise on his chest, throbbing with pain. She knew that she should go to the hospital, but she remembered that Ojima had disappeared after taking the medicine. She was burning with anxiety. "Brother, which woman did you go to last night?" she demanded angrily. That drug will make him lose his mind if he goes out and finds another woman. He must have just gotten out of bed. The thought of him hanging out with a woman made the wound in her chest hurt even more. Ojima was still thinking about the content of the meeting. When he heard Jiang Ro's words, he finally reacted. He stopped in his tracks. His eyes turned cold as he glanced at her. "Which woman?" His indifferent tone was strangely cold. "You drugged the mineral water." That was out of my expectations. Even if he wanted to prank him, it should be laxatives or something else that would make him feel uncomfortable. How could it be an aphrodisiac? If it was another woman, he would suspect that it was a clumsy method to get him. But Jiang Ro was his sister. A suspicious thought quickly swept through his mind, but he did not think much about it. He only looked at Jiang Ro's guilty face. He lowered his voice, and the coldness in his eyes was finally mixed with anger. "It seems that I haven't taught you enough lessons. Not only will your car be frozen, but your contract is also in the company. I will put you directly into the cold storage period. You don't have to work in the entertainment industry anymore. Your monthly living expenses will be 2,000. Your and your mother's living expenses. / Chapter 1185. 2,000? What could two people do with $2,000 a month? She would spend more than half of it on a meal. "Brother, I'm your sister. Jiang didn't expect Jinma to be so ruthless. But Jinma was even more ruthless. He tugged at his sleeves impatiently. Oh yes, you should move out of the house too. I'll get someone to take it over. Go out and rent a house. Rent a house. $2,000 wasn't just for living expenses, but also for rent. How is that possible? Was he trying to dismiss a beggar? Jinma's voice was extremely cold. I've been kind enough to you. Don't think it's too little. Don't you have hands and feet? You have to support yourself. How long have you been an adult? What a vicious sister. He wasn't really a saint. Even his water could be drugged. Would it be arsenic next time? He didn't take revenge on her because they were siblings. Jinma couldn't be bothered to look at Jiang. He casually opened the door. Jiang said in a trembling voice, "Brother." Jinma suddenly thought of something and laughed sarcastically. Actually, you can also sell songs. Don't you have the talent to write songs? He emphasized the word, write songs, coldly. Jiang instinctively realized something. She forced a smile and said, "Brother, are you misunderstanding something?" Jinma tilted his head. His amber eyes were indifferent and calm. It was as if he didn't have Jiang in his eyes. Then his thin lips curved into a mocking smile. It's a misunderstanding. It's fine as long as you know it. After all, if you can steal a song once, you can steal it twice. Don't you think so? Confession was stolen. Of course, Qing Lian was stolen too. It was a pity that Wei Bai, the original author of Confession, sang it first, and Jiang didn't have time to release it. That was why Wei Bai didn't have to be involved in plagiarism again. Jinma's expression turned even colder as he thought of this. Qing Lian's original manuscripts should have been destroyed. It was not easy to get Jiang to admit that she stole the song. Even if everyone doubted her, she insisted that it was her original work. He still couldn't do anything to her. Jinma thought for a while, then pursed his lips and sneered. There was always a way to get the truth out. He walked in and slammed the door shut without hesitation. He shut out Jiang face, which did not resemble him at all, and which was becoming more and more of an eyesore. He thought of Wei Bai. She raised herself and even ate instant noodles. She didn't mistreat a stray cat. The difference in character between people was too great. He had been too soft on Jiang. But after his parents died, this eyesore of a younger sister was the only one related to him by blood. Jinma suppressed his anger and decided to tolerate Jiang one more time. If she did something that crossed his bottom line again, he would kick her out of his world completely. The second round of good songs will be broadcasted next week. Jiang plagiarism incident was still hot on the internet. The director of Good Songs had tasted the sweetness of high ratings. It was decided that the second round would be broadcasted again. The original songs in by Wei's hands could be released several albums. This morning, there were staff members who came to buy songs. The price was very good. Wei Bai happily sold 2 songs. She had enough for living expenses. Jinma also received the songs he bought. He touched the music score and couldn't wait to play it. She was very good at writing fresh and beautiful sweet songs. These 2 songs were the same. They were both high-quality sweet songs. She was simply a treasure. How could such a talented piece be written in such a short time? The download address is at https://www.sashu.com. Chapter 1186. Jinma knew that she had only written it recently. Because he was her cat, he had a rough idea of how many songs she had written. Jinma sang the song softly and realized that his voice sounded pretty good when he sang this song. His voice was ethereal and high-pitched. There was no pressure at all when he sang the high notes. Also, his voice was so clear that it was almost cold. Hence, most of his songs were fantasy-themed. They were filled with all kinds of intoxicating and dazzling skills. In addition, he had super high stage performance. This made his style especially cool. But when he calmed down and sang a peaceful song, it was very holy. This was also the origin of his angelic persona. People would rather believe that his cold and changeable performance on stage was just for stage effects. They would rather believe that his quiet holiness was his true nature. Jinma took Wei Bai's song. This was not his style. It was the complete opposite of his style. Hence, he bought her song and needed to promote her song. He could not suppress the song and not sing it. But who was suitable to sing it? No one was suitable. When he thought of Wei Wei Bai's song for others to sing, he felt as if he had lice all over his body. He could not sit still and felt uncomfortable. But if she did not sing for others, her song would not be promoted. Wasn't this a trap for her? During the meeting, Jinma was also in a daze. He was thinking hard about who was suitable for this song. Suddenly, the assistant beside him said, "Brother Imo, the meeting is almost over." Jinma looked up blankly and nodded before saying, "I suddenly feel like singing a love song. You don't have any objections, right?" All the executives, Who did not know Jinma's style? Love songs were not his style at all. Angels did not only have to be in love. They also had to sing love songs. It sounded like a logical thing to do. Jinma saw that no one had any objections and nodded satisfactorily. "No objections, that's it. I only need 2 songs for my album. Both of them are love songs." One of the executives finally asked with difficulty, "You know how to write love songs?" It wasn't that they were suspicious. It was just that out of all the songs written by Jinma, only a few of them had elements of love songs. He said that it was an element. It was because none of those love songs were normal. The Grim Reaper and the Graveyard could become the main subject of his love song. When others asked, he would still say that love was buried in the grave. Wasn't it romantic? The Grim Reaper cutting off the head of the betrothed was even more romantic. Fall your head off, it's more like frightening someone to death, all right? Therefore, his love songs were really unlistenable. Jinma crossed his arms and rested them under his chin. He revealed a gentle smile. No, it was written by someone else. The higher-ups, Jinma had never used a song written by someone else. All of them were produced by himself, composed by himself, and even arranged by himself. He was that awesome. After so many years in the industry, this was the first time she heard him wanting to use someone else's song. His genius persona collapsed again. So this meeting was held to ruin his image? Who didn't know how valuable Jinma's image was? The higher-ups looked at each other, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. They could only pray that the 2 songs were of good quality. Another executive asked carefully, "What's the style of the love song? Is it cool?" Jinma's gaze softened. "It's very gentle, and the lyrics are not bad. You're my only sparrow, and I'm your cute cherry." The higher-ups. Why'd he start singing while talking? And this love song was too girly and childish. Chapter 1187. After the meeting, the public opinion on the internet exploded once again. The netizens expressed that they had too much gossip and were about to vomit. Jinma spent the night with a woman and left in the morning with messy clothes. This was an exclusive news, and the title was very reasonable. After all, as long as Jinma appeared, it would become a hot news story. There was no need to create any trouble at all. Jinma's angel group would definitely come in and scold this kind of news. But this time it was a picture. It made people speechless because the man in the picture was wearing a simple t-shirt and trousers, casually standing at the entrance of the road. He calmly turned to look at the camera. His eyes were cold and had a trace of lazy gloominess. There was no trace of smile in his beautiful amber eyes. His short hair was messy and unkempt, and his clothes were wrinkled. His body was slender, and his posture was casual. Sexy, so sexy that people felt like they could drown in his eyes. If it was just this picture, it would be fine. But the next picture was of Jinma coming out of the building. There was also a picture of him driving into the building at night. What was even more irrefutable was the next picture. It was a girl with her back to the camera, carrying a cat as she walked towards a soy milk shop. Jinma followed behind her in his car. The car window was half opened, revealing his impeccable side profile. His expression was gentle, and his gaze was gentle. It was as if the girl in front of him was the one he cared about. There was no need to think about the series of pictures. It was all a drama. Jinma was involved in a scandal for the first time, and it was an undeniable scandal. The angel group was in an uproar. I don't believe it. It must be because of the angle of the picture. My Mo is not so sexy. Ojima had always given them the impression that he was a pure boy. He was talented, ignorant, and pure. Even angels were not as pure as him. I have goosebumps. In the picture of him standing by the roadside, he didn't even put on his t-shirt properly. His shoulders are exposed, and I can see his muscles. You're going off topic. What's going on between him and that woman? Let's talk after you lick the screen. Bootlicker +1. MO seems to be in love. The fans who were licking their screens were all stunned. Only then did he realize that this photo seemed to be probably dating. The fans were shocked, at a loss, and even refused to believe it. After all, in this day and age, there were so many real and fake news. Even if one saw a sex scene, it might not be true. These innocent photos might not be real. There was a group leader in the fan club who was in charge of controlling the fans. He immediately restrained the agitated fans. Then, everyone gathered under Ojima's Weibo. They all asked, MO, someone posted a photo of you and said that you spent the night with a woman? They thought that Ojima would not answer. After all, he was so busy. But soon, an answer appeared under the question. We spent the night together, but it was just a chat, nothing else. The fans were excited. Ojima had actually answered personally. Hearing his denial, they were relieved. Are you going to talk about official business? Why are you talking about spending the night together? Under the question, there were a bunch of comments asking him not to work too hard. Ojima, I wanted to do something to her at first, but she was too innocent and didn't let me touch her. The fans. Huh? Wait a minute, what did you say? The fans trembled and asked, You're really in love? Ojima. Yes. A calm and indifferent yes. Ojima. She's the first girl I've ever had feelings for. I like her. Quick, ruthless, and accurate. After saying that he was in love, he directly announced it. A sharp-eyed fan tried to ask, That girl isn't by Weiwei, right? After all, the photo was too clear. Even if it was a back view, it was too easy to recognize her. This time, Ojima did not answer, but he posted on Weibo, Weiwei bye, I like you. Will you accept me? This Weibo post was much more shocking than any news. The fans were dizzy and felt that the world was falling apart. Some of the impulsive fans even cursed at Weiwei Bai for stealing Ojima. A large number of fans rushed to Weiwei Bai's Weibo and rolled up their sleeves to scold Weiwei Bai for being shameless for seducing Ojima. Weiwei Bai's latest Weibo post was clearly at the top. Ojima, I don't like you. Get lost. Fan. Crossover system. Adonis. Come here. Crossover system. Adonis. Come here and read the full article at https://www. Sashu. Download Transmigration system. Adonis. Come here. Crossover system. Adonis. Come here. Chapter 1188. What should we do when our idol announces his relationship on the internet? What should we do when our idol announces his love on the internet? What should we do when our idol announces his love on the internet? It's a fucking unrequited love. Our idol's unrequited love is over. He confessed, but he was rejected. What should we do? Ojima's fans were brutally ravaged by a piece of news. They were tortured over and over again. They were slapped in the face at their darkest hour. Their faces hurt so much that they didn't even know how to scold others. What should they scold? Should they scold their idol for confessing? Should they scold him for confessing? How could they be rejected? It was too embarrassing. They were simply thrown off the face of the earth. The news was everywhere in the blink of an eye. Even the foreign newspapers specially left the headlines for Ojima. Little angel Ojima's heart was stirred. There was finally a woman he liked. Sorry, he was rejected. Ojima posted on Weibo again. It's fine if you don't accept me, but can you not ask me to leave? The fans had forgotten that Ojima was in a relationship. Their angel core would crush anyone they saw. Whether it was soft power or hard work, Ojima could crush the music industry. The album sales and the awards it received were all top-notch in the international market. As a result, the fans of the Angel Group were proud and arrogant at the same time. When they were scolding others, who dared to compete with them? After all, Ojima was a natural barrier that couldn't be crossed. Hence, The Angel group had never been slapped in the face because Jinma's existence was a nuclear weapon that slapped others in the face. But now they were stabbed again and again and again. Someone actually asked their little angel to leave. Then, their little angel was actually extremely obsequious. He was just short of printing the word lick on his face and begging others not to ask him to leave. The Angel group felt that they were not only slapped in the face, their hearts were also broken. Even their long-time arrogance was kneeling down. The angry Angel group squeezed in a Wei Bai's Weibo. Why don't you want my MOMO? He's the best singer in the world. My MOMO has been ranked #1 in Asia for 7 years in a row. His cumulative sales volume is second in the world. His fans are all over the world, and he has won countless awards. He will eventually be recorded in the annals of history and will be remembered by a generation, although the sales volume was real. However, his tone was no different from a pyramid scheme. Every time MOMO holds a concert, the tickets are sold out within 10 minutes. Scalpers can only buy tickets that are more than 10 times the price. Men and women of all ages like him. He is the hope of reviving the music industry. A bunch of chatter. There is only one sentence in the end. What right do you have to reject him? What right do you have to ask him scram? Wei Bai was sorting out the music score when she casually glanced at Weibo. The number of fans increased. The number of comments had also increased. It was now the second most searched topic. She had asked Jinma to get lost on Weibo, and there were hundreds of thousands of comments. The top search was Jinma's confession on Weibo. The number of comments exceeded 1 million in just half a day. What's more, the comments were still increasing. These are not fake reviewers, but real fan comments. The intensity of the fans' comments was jaw-dropping. Most of the comments below her were asking her not to reject Jinma. Wei Bai's lips twitched. She didn't think that if she dated Jinma, his favorability toward her might not increase. But because of the fans, her relationship with Jinma would definitely not be smooth sailing. When the time came, Jinma would not be able to handle the fans' counterattack. He would be frustrated and his favorability towards her might decrease. After all, his Angela persona was because she didn't have it. Anyway, she could still woo him. That was why she decided to reject Jinma so that her future strategy would be smoother. However, this group of fans was simply crazy. Even though she rejected them, they were even more anxious than Jinma. Instead, they were forcing her to accept Jinma's confession. Button at the bottom to record your reading record. Chapter 1189. Indeed, when a celebrity was sick in the head, their fans were also sick in the head. Wei Bai was too lazy to reply to Weibo. She was here for the strategy, not to be a celebrity. She participated in the singing competition because she could not waste the 50 days of life points. If she did not write more songs, she would lose so much that her heart would bleed. There was no mission for her to become the queen of the entertainment industry. So what was she doing? That was why Wei Bai was so calm. Suddenly, she thought of a problem. Her movements paused, and there was even a hint of vigilance in her eyes. Tongzi, the system was classifying its own garbage, and now it had become a garbage collecting system. Hearing the host's gloomy voice, it immediately said, "I didn't spend your life points to buy snacks, really." Wei Bai said, "Well, I just want to ask, why hasn't the side mission appeared this time?" She was really afraid of the crazy side mission. She did not hear the notification of the side mission. She felt uneasy. It was better to have the side mission at the beginning than to wait until she was almost done with the strategy and then come out to give her trouble. The system immediately flipped through the notification. No, the side mission will only be triggered under special circumstances. It hasn't been triggered in this world yet, so let's wait first. Wei Bai narrowed her eyes and pondered. Side mission? Could it be that it was thinking of something to mess with her again? Her biggest enemy now was not the strategy target. It was the side mission. If there were villains in her world, those who blocked her path, such as Jiangro. In front of the main system side mission, they were all vulnerable. The system threw a completely useless piece of garbage into the bin, as if it knew Wei Bai's depression. It comforted her. "It's okay, it's just a side mission, you can do it." Wei Wei Bai was touched. You're getting gentler, Tongzi. You used to be like a poisonous snake with a mouth full of venom. The system said, I'm being gentle to you, and you're bringing up old scores with me? Wei Wei Bai said, No, I just miss the evil you used to be. The system said, There's no need to reminisce. I'll let you experience my evil side now. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Wei Wei Bai shuddered. You bought potato chips. The system snorted coldly and elegantly. Yes, I bought the Super Supreme Luxury VIP lobster with diamonds, abalone, and bird's nest flavor potato chips. Wei Wei Bai said, It sounds disgusting. Then it silently hugged its Cheongtong potato chips, turned around, squatted in the trash can, and cried. It couldn't even act cool anymore. The host disdained the name that it came up with to show off. Of course, potato chips with only 3 days of HP wouldn't taste good. In the evening, when Wei Wei Bai came out of the shower, she found her big face cat sitting on the bed gloomily, staring at her. It was obviously Ojima. Wei Wei Bai acted as if nothing had happened. She wiped her wet hair with a towel and tugged at the collar of her pajamas. Her fair skin was faintly discernible. Seductive. As expected, Ojima's eyes narrowed. He stretched his neck forward, wanted to take a few more glances. Wei Wei Bai calmly walked over and put the towel aside. She reached out and carried him up, placing him on her lap. Ojima could only smell the scent of her shower. It smelled so good that it made his heart beat faster. Wei Wei Bai's expression was gentle. She took out a cat's nail clipper and started to trim Ojima's nails. She gently bent over, and her long hair brushed past his body. Ojima felt the cat's back being brushed by the tip of her hair. It made him feel numb and refreshing. He couldn't help but let out a low meow. And read the full article at https://www.sashu. And read the full article at https://www.sashu.com. Chapter 1190. Then she said to Su Yedwan, If you don't treat it, the wound will heal very slowly. After saying that, she took out a medical cotton swab. She dipped it in medical alcohol and cleaned his wound. Su Yedwan immediately sat upright and let Wei Wei Bai clean his wound. Wei Wei Bai had just put on the okay bandage for him. Suddenly, her head felt heavy. Su Yedwan looked up and saw a big-faced cat that had grown a little meat squatting on Wei Wei Bai's head. The big-faced cat looked at him with a pair of sinister eyes. She could actually see contempt in a cat's eyes. Su Yedwan really wanted to rub her eyes. Wei Wei Bai reached out and touched the cat. She immediately frowned and said, Xiao Shu, stop fooling around. Come down. Ojinma, meow, if you don't want to come down, then so be it. Don't think of hooking up with a man in front of me. Cats had weight too. Wei Wei Bai's neck was about to break. She took a deep breath and reached out to pull Ojinma down. Ojinma used its furry paws to press against her face and its 2 back paws to rub against her neck. Its entire cat belly was on her head. The cat's face rested on her forehead. Then it glared at Su Yedwan with its pair of cat eyes. Coming to hook up with the girl he liked in the middle of the night. What a bastard with bad intentions. Don't even think of taking advantage of Wei Wei Bai. Su Yedwan coughed lightly. He felt that the cat was hostile to him and even had a murderous aura. Was it an illusion? He took 2 steps forward, wanting to help Wei Wei Bai put the cat down. However, just as he reached out, Ojima immediately reached out with its paws and slapped him away. This time, it didn't use its sharp claws. It just slapped him away because he was going to make this bastard bleed again. Wei Wei Bai was going to put the okay bandage on him again. Sure enough, this cat had a murderous intent towards him. Before Su Yai could think further, Wei Wei Bai had already reached out and touched Ojinma's neck. Then, she lifted him up. Ojinma wanted to struggle, but for some reason, he was being held by the neck. He didn't have any strength at all. He watched helplessly as he left the top of Wei Wei Bai's head. The expression on his face became dejected. Wei Wei Bai placed him on the bed and rubbed his head. Stop fooling around, little tree. Su Yai watched as Wei Wei Bai comforted the cat. His gaze became even gentler. Then he said, Are you free tomorrow night? Wei Wei Bai looked up. I'm going to participate in a singing competition tomorrow, so I'm free at night. After all, the live stream was only in the morning. Su Yetian said gently. Then can I treat you to a meal? Wei Wei Bai laughed. I should be the one treating you. After all, you saved my cat. Su Yahuan didn't argue and immediately nodded. Then it's settled. You treat. After he finished speaking, he took his jacket and walked out. Wei Wei Bai watched him leave and closed the door. When she turned around, she saw Jinma's cat eyes on fire. He gritted his teeth and looked at her hatefully. The system couldn't bear to look at him. You're flirting with a man in front of the male lead. Aren't you asking for a beating? Jinma was about to go crazy. An old virgin like him finally had his first love. His first love was going on a date with a man in the middle of the night. Fuck, he was going to be cuckolded. Wei Wei Bai said, you don't understand. Sometimes you need to feel nervous so your target will start to move faster. Nervousness, jealousy, sadness. If these emotions were used well, they could turn the tables around. The system said, you're a devil. Bai Weiwei got on the bed. She took the cat, whose eyes were burning, and placed it in her arms. Then she closed her eyes and said, little tree, go to sleep. There's still a competition tomorrow. Jinma wanted to bite her to death. Going on a date with a wild man in the middle of a competition. Did she think he was dead? She slapped him in the face in front of millions of people and rejected him. Now, she was going to meet someone else's eyes again. She still had feelings for him. So how could she go back on her words? Jinma listened to her love songs and felt that every song was written for him. That was why he dared to confess. He felt that she would accept it. When he thought of this, his tears almost fell. Wei Wei Bai fell asleep. Her light breathing made Jinma want to wake her up. But when he thought of the competition tomorrow, he retracted his claws and didn't dare to disturb her. He was left alone in the middle of the night, licking his lonely wound that was emitting a green light. The next day, Wei Wei Bai was ready to go out. She saw a car blocking in front of her house. Jinma was wearing black pants and a black shirt with a long windbreaker and black boots. He looked clean and handsome. He saw Wei Wei Bai walking over. His sunglasses slid down his nose, revealing a pair of cold amber eyes. Then his voice was as cold as ice and snow. Wei Wei, are you free tonight? I'll treat you to dinner. It was Jinma's first time inviting someone out for a meal, so he was full of murderous intent. He couldn't wait to chew up Wei Wei Bai and eat her up. Wei Wei Bai. Transmigration system. Adonis, come here. Crossover system. Adonis, come here and read the full article at https://www. Sashu, download Transmigration system. Adonis, come here //. Chapter 1191. He suddenly confessed and chased after her. If it was a girl with an unstable temperament who was vain, she would have immediately accepted him regardless of the reason behind his change in attitude. However, after she turned against him, she continued to be a hater. Any reaction towards him was a very normal self-protection. He couldn't say that he was her cat. He couldn't say such things even if he was beaten to death. Jinma was so angry that he only wanted to announce their relationship to the world. When he saw her being intimate with the doctor, he became hot-headed and came to bully her. He even brought the reporters along. Now that he thought about it, it was indeed too much. Jinma saw her red face. She was so angry, but why did he feel that she looked good when she blushed? He tried to salvage his image. Did you see my confession? Wei Wei Bai almost rolled her eyes. Wasn't this nonsense? She looked at him coldly. Your so-called confession made me angry and scolded by thousands of people every day. Do you hate me that much? Jinma's smile disappeared. He leaned against the car door and lowered his head dejectedly. His stray hair fell under his eyes. His beautiful and slender figure was like a natural clothes hanger, making the luxury car behind him pale in comparison. He pursed his lips lightly, and there was a trace of sadness in his half-closed amber eyes. Pure and clear. A beautiful pool of sunshine in his eyes. I just want to tell you that I feel for you. I want to be with you when I see you. His aggrieved look was indescribably pitiful. He was 185 meters tall, but he gave people a soft and pitiful feeling that he needed to be protected. What was even more strange was that he actually looked very good and didn't make people feel disgusted at all. He frowned, and there was a naive expression on his fair face. His gaze softened. Maybe you're surprised, but feelings come suddenly. I'm sincere, and I don't want to make you sad. He said it with sincerity. He said it helplessly and pitifully. It was simply too good. He was just short of wearing a halo and wings behind him. He was so holy that he wanted to fly. But the favorability didn't increase. Wei Wei Bai was helpless against Jinma's strange increase in affinity. If it was someone with a normal personality, she would just go with the flow and accept it. Then, his favorability towards him slowly increased. However, this would not work for Jinma. Jinma was such a fanatic because of his first love. He only had 50 favorable impression points, yet he had already made it known to everyone. He was even more arrogant than someone with 100 favorable impression points. However, Wei Wei Bai analyzed Jinma's personality. He knew that he was not a reliable person. If he truly loved someone, he would not allow her to be in danger. Hence, Jinma's love of 50 favorable impression points was real. But he loved himself more, and that was true. If he succeeded in his confession now, in that case, it wouldn't be easy to increase his favorability in the future. After all, he might not necessarily cherish what he had obtained. Wei Wei Bai thought about it realistically for a moment, and then looked at the cat beside her feet. Distance creates beauty. It was better to continue rejecting him. Hence, Wei Wei Bai's face turned cold, and she looked at him expressionlessly. Jinma, your feelings have nothing to do with me. Please let me go. After saying that, she bent down to hug the cat and turned to leave. Jinma suddenly tugged at her clothes. But you used to like me. The more he spoke, the less confident he became. Wei Wei Bai heard him mention the past, yet he still had the cheek to mention the past. She laughed coldly. You also said that was in the past. After I saw your true colors, I stopped being your fan and I won't see you again. / Chapter 1192. Jinma said softly, Is it because I'm not an angel that you don't like me? She used to like his angel persona, so he hated her and revealed his true nature. Did she not like him? Thinking of this, Jinma's heart ached. Sure enough, everyone liked this persona and not him. Wei Wei Bai stopped in her tracks. Her body stiffened for a moment before she suddenly turned around and slapped him in the face. Jinma was stunned and didn't even blink. Then he saw Wei Wei Bai gritting her teeth and saying, Angel my ass, what kind of angel are you? We are old neighbors. It's not like I haven't seen you steal chickens and dogs before. Is there an angel who steals sweet potatoes from my kitchen? She exposed his past. Jinma's old face turned red. Wei Wei Bai sneered. I know you better than you do. I don't care about your persona. I just like you and your music. It was a simple sentence. Jinma was used to seeing protective words from fans. He was used to hearing flattery. He was even more spoiled by fans, companies, managers, and investors. But they all wanted him to maintain a likable persona so that they would continue to invest in him without any complaints, even if fans said that they liked his music. However, he knew very well that a lot of fans would fall for this kind of trick. This made him see many fans saying that they liked his music. He still had doubts in his heart. This fan actually only came because of his genius and angelic contrasting personality. In this era of entertainment to death, he didn't dare to believe in anyone. But Wei Wei Bai used such a cold attitude to say that she only liked his music. Jinma's heart was immediately touched. His heart that didn't trust people was broken. Ding, the male lead's favorability is at 55. She lowered her eyes and softened her voice. Jinma, I just thought that you would help me because I am your neighbor, but I didn't expect you to give me such a big blow. Every time I see you, I feel embarrassed. Jinma's eyes reddened. If he was pretending just now, now he really felt that he was pitiful. Being told that he was embarrassed by a woman was more powerful than any words of rejection. Wei Wei Bai said, So, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. The drama on the internet can also stop. Don't mess up my life. Jinma clenched his hands in his pockets. The pitiful look on his face suddenly disappeared. Instead, it was a cold interrogation. Wei Wei Bai, you don't believe that I like you. Wei Wei Bai was silent for a while before nodding her head. I don't believe you. With that said, she didn't any longer. Ojima did not stop her again. However, his eyes were cold as he slumped down softly. He stared blankly as Wei Wei Bai left. His tall and straight body slumped. He leaned against the car. The car and the people were all very lonely. There was a feeling of being abandoned. Ojima finally understood what it meant to shoot oneself in the foot. If he hadn't been so malicious towards Wei Wei Bai in the beginning, he wouldn't have been disliked to this extent. He quickly got into the car and sped away. Wei Wei Bai had to squeeze into the bus again. At this time, the bus was the most damn crowded. What if she got hurt by the jostling? Meanwhile, the reporters outside Wei Wei Bai's house were already scrambling to publish the headlines. Ojima's confession is rejected again. Bootlicker gets slapped /. Chapter 1193. This title, the angels on the internet were slapped in the face again. Slap, slap, slap. The angels turned into bootlickers. Damn it. Even if you want to change, you should at least inform us. How can you bootlick just like that? The angels immediately howled miserably again. Wei Wei Bai's Weibo fans increased again. Then, her slowly growing fan club started to fight with the angels. The angels, Wei Wei Bai, your character is low and you have no talent at all. Get out of the entertainment industry. Wei Wei Bai fans, your MOMO has been rejected by my Wei Wei. The angels, Wei Wei Bai, your singing is terrible. Wei Wei Bai fans, your MOMO has been rejected by my Wei Wei again. The angels made a big move. Wei Wei Bai, you are not good enough for my MOMO Wei Wei Bai fans. Your MOMO has been rejected by my Wei Wei for being a bootlicker. The angels, damn it, there was no way out. They couldn't even fight anymore. They had no dignity at all. The angels clung to Ojinma's Weibo and cried bitterly. Bootlickers don't have a good ending. Wake up. Ojima finally posted on Weibo, collecting proposals on how to confess to the goddess and go on a date. Those who are chosen will get 100,000 yuan in cash. The angel group felt their hearts shatter. But 100,000 yuan, an angel fan couldn't help but come up with an idea. You can continue to bootlick. The goddess will definitely want you. The rest of the angels, so they were not called angels anymore, but bootlickers. Wei Wei Bai's second round of live broadcast went smoothly. Ojima sat in the middle of the judges' table. He was definitely in the center position. He was in charge of praising the contestants. After all, his character was an angel. He wanted to solidify his image as an angel, and at the same time, raise his image of guiding the younger generation. The program team and Enchanting company were happy. But during the live broadcast, everyone felt that something was wrong. The other contestants went on stage. Ojima's expression was cold. He wore a pair of sunglasses and looked indifferent. When the contestant finished singing, Ojima, I've never heard such a terrible song before. You better not create a new song, or else it'll poison our brains. The contestants and the rest of the judges, what happened to the compliment? Where's the promised angel? One of the contestants went up and was scolded by Ojima. What's more, it was very effective. This left the contestants speechless. Finally, it was Wei Wei Bai's turn. Everyone was waiting anxiously. After all, Wei Wei Bai had rejected Ojima. This superstar might take the opportunity to take revenge. The song that Wei Wei Bai chose was a more touching one. It was still fresh and refreshing. It was very pleasant to hear. Ojima took off his glasses and applauded. Best song of the year. You wrote it better than me. You've advanced. The rest of the judges. Could this bootlicking be any more obvious? Also, they were dead people. How could they advance just because you said so? Ojima then remembered that there were people around. He turned and smiled. Do you have any opinions? The judges all praised her. No, the song is really nice. Bai Weiwei was incomparably calm. She bowed and said a word of thanks, neither salty nor weak. Then, she turned around and left the stage. Ojima suddenly said, Contestant number 7, your song has inspired me. Why don't you sing a song with me? Wei Wei Bai, I'm not free. After saying that, She walked backstage without even looking at him. Oh Jinma was stunned for a moment. Then, he showed a sad expression. When the next contestant went on stage, he saw Oh Jinma staring at him fiercely. The contestant trembled and forgot about the song. After advancing, she basically had nothing else to do. She went to the appointment. Although it was to provoke Oh Jinma, she still had to abide by the agreement. They agreed to meet at a Japanese restaurant. It was the kind of restaurant with individual tatami rooms. Oh Jinma also received the news. He gritted his teeth so hard that they were about to break. When Bai Weiwei arrived at the private room, she opened the Japanese-style wooden door and smiled. "Dr. Su, I'm here." With that, Weiwei Bai looked over. She saw that Su Yehuan was sitting there. There was also someone sitting at the table. It was Oh Jinma, who was eyeing them covetously. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Oh Jinma sneered. "You're here for dinner too? What a coincidence. I just happened to pass by. Let's have a meal together." Weiwei Bai and Su Yehuan. The forward slash. Chapter 1194. This passing by. This coincidence. Su Yehuan was originally embarrassed, but when she saw Weiwei Bai, she couldn't help but smile. He immediately stood up and was about to let Weiwei Bai in. Oh Jinma had already stood up and rushed over to take Weiwei Bai's bag and jacket. He grabbed her hand and led her over. Su Yehuan had already reached out her hand, but Oh Jinma pushed her to the side. Weiwei Bai was forced to sit opposite Su Yehuan. Only then did Oh Jinma calmly sit side by side with her. Then Oh Jinma asked the waiter to come in and order the dishes. He did everything very naturally. Su Yehuan and Weiwei Bai instantly became guests. After the dishes were served, Oh Jinma calmly picked up his chopsticks. "Come eat." The atmosphere was very awkward. Su Yehuan reacted in time and immediately smiled warmly. Then he picked up his chopsticks and picked up a piece of sashimi to put into Weiwei Bai's bowl. "Weiwei, this restaurant's sashimi is very good. Try it." Oh Jinma was expressionless. His long fingers moved and the chopsticks accurately picked up the sashimi. Then he stuffed it into his mouth and ate. After eating, he casually commented, "Not bad." Su Yehuan was speechless. Weiwei Bai felt that the atmosphere was very awkward. She picked up her chopsticks and picked up the sashimi herself. "Let me try it." But just as she picked up the sashimi, Oh Jinma's fingers suddenly trembled and his chopsticks fell on the table. His face was pale as he supported himself with both hands. "Don't eat it. It's poisonous." Weiwei Bai was knocked by his shoulder and the sashimi fell. She turned around and saw him holding his stomach exaggeratedly. His beautiful eyes were filled with pain and the back of his hands were trembling. He looked very uncomfortable. Oh Jinma tilted his face and deliberately chose the prettiest face to face her. Her eyelashes were pressed against her eyes, and the amber color of her pupils was resplendent and beautiful under the light. A thin layer of sweat appeared on his white forehead. His thin lips moved, and he murmured softly and pitifully, "Weiwei, my stomach hurts." Weiwei Bai finally knew where his angel persona came from. His appearance was against the rules. Even if he was a demon, he didn't speak and just smiled. He was so pure and handsome that it made people's legs go weak. A trace of struggle appeared on Weiwei Bai's face as she reached out to support him. Oh Jinma's eyes flashed with a hint of success. His other hand was firmly gripping Oh Jinma's wrist. Oh Jinma's mouth twitched. He saw Su Yehuan leaning over the table and placing her fingers on his wrist. He looked worried. "Does your stomach hurt? Let me take your pulse." My family has been Chinese medicine for generations. Although I studied Western medicine and did surgery, I still know some pulse reading techniques. If I can't find anything wrong with you, you can only go to the hospital. I'll examine you personally. His words were flawless. He was compassionate and friendly. In contrast, Oh Jinma felt like he was the one who was throwing a tantrum. He turned to look at Weiwei Bai. Indeed, her eyes were attracted to Su Yehuan. The sourness in his chest appeared again. Indeed, these two were here for a blind date. Otherwise, why would they book a Japanese private room? Moreover, Weiwei Bai had a very good impression of Su Yehuan. If he didn't come today, would they have gotten married and had to register their marriage? Ojima's hand twitched, and he quickly broke away from Su Yehuan's touch. He even used a tissue to wipe his hand in disdain. I'm fine. I don't need to go to the hospital. Going to the hospital was this guy's territory. When the time came, he would show his mature and elegant charm. Wei Wei Bai was seduced. Ojima thought sourly. If they had the guts, they should have competed in singing instead of medicine. Chapter 1195. Su Yehuan calmly retracted her hand and took advantage of the fact that Ojima was still in a daze to pick up a piece of tofu for Wei Wei Bai. Since the sashimi is poisonous, eat some tofu. The tofu here is very light. Wei Wei Bai smiled and said, Thank you, Dr. Su. Su Yehuan said, It's too distant to call me doctor. Just call me by my name. Ojima snorted coldly and stabbed his chopsticks into a piece of vegetable on the plate. Eat tofu? Whose tofu do you want to eat? Su Yehuan said gracefully, Mr. O, do you drink? I asked someone to serve some sake. If you can't drink, then there's no need for a cup. Ojima sneered, Drink, why don't you drink? He wanted to compete with him in drinking. He wouldn't be afraid, even if someone gave him a bottle of white wine. Not to mention the soft Qingjiu. Wei Wei Bai was very calm in this kind of situation. Between the two men, Dr. Su was smiling while Ojima was sneering. Then they drank silently. It was as if they could win if they drank the other party. Wei Wei Bai ate silently, wishing that they would both drink. Japanese food was rare, and if two more men ate, she wouldn't be full. They were almost done eating. She slowed down, trying to figure out who would pay the bill. Although she had 2 songs in her account, she didn't know who would pay the bill. But the days were long. She had to live frugally. Suddenly, Ojima thought of something and looked at her. His face was a little red, and his lips were especially alluring because of the wine. Wei Wei, do you want a drink? Wei Wei Bai came here to eat and didn't want to flirt with men. Ojima, this guy couldn't be too flirty. After all, the stickers in this world cost 100 health points. It was too expensive. She couldn't afford it. He could only slowly bait Ojima and slowly boil the frog in warm water, slowly filling up his favorability. Then she wouldn't have to sell herself. Wei Wei Bai was about to refuse. However, the system said, Here comes the side quest. Wei Wei Bai paused. Then, she heard the automatic notification sound. Ding, I'm a little cutie. How many little secrets do I have? I have many secrets, but I won't tell you. Tui, if you don't want to tell me, so be it. Who cares? Wei Wei Bai despised the side quest in her heart. Host, please find out Su Yetai's little secret and complete the random mission. Small mission activated. Please immediately drink the wine in the male lead's hand in front of Su Yetai. You cannot touch the wine cup. Wei Wei Bai. Why was the side quest about finding Su Yehua's little secret? Shouldn't they be looking for Ojima's secret? Wei Wei Bai's mind was full of doubts, but he still reacted in time. I'll drink. Ojima was a little tipsy. She pursed her lips and gave him a seductive smile. He was holding a wine cup in his hand. There was still wine left in the cup. He didn't think much about it. Just as he was about to put down his wine cup and pour her a cup, a hand gently rested on his wrist. Her fingers were beautiful and fair. The back of her hand was thin and delicate. He could see the green veins. It was such a weak and light hand, but it dragged his hand forward. Then, she lowered her head and drank the remaining wine in his cup. Perhaps the girl didn't know, but when she lowered her head, her exposed neck and thin shoulders formed a particularly beautiful arc. Ojima could hardly look away. Wei Wei Bai finished the wine. Then, she heard the sound of the small mission being completed. Ding, small mission completed. Reward, 1 day of life. Wei Wei Bai, reward, life. The system said it's New Year in the system world, so during the New Year, all the side quests have red packets as rewards. Slash. Chapter 1196. Wei Wei Bai asked, How long has it been since the New Year? The system replied, Not sure. We spent a lot of time in the last year, but not this year. Wei Wei Bai said, You system world are so unreliable. You don't even know when the New Year is. The system replied, This proves that we are free and unrestrained. Wei Wei Bai was speechless. Oh Jinma watched as she continued to eat, as if nothing had happened after she finished the wine. He watched as she lowered her head to eat. Her red lips moved as she ate. She looked even more delicious than the food. Su Yedwan seemed to be shocked as well. Wei Wei Bai's actions were too natural and too fast. She did not even feel inferior. Instead, she gave off a natural elegance. She was drinking from someone else's glass. Yet, it felt as if it was natural. Su Yedwan could not help but ask, "Do you want another drink?" Wei Wei. Oh Jinma's eyes darkened. Anger surged within him. He laughed coldly. Su Yedwan, what do you mean? Su Yedwan's expression was calm. He smiled. Nothing much. I just want to confess to Wei Wei. This sentence was like a bomb. He bluntly broke the oppressive atmosphere. Wei Wei Bai looked up as well. She seemed to be surprised. Actually, she did not feel that Su Yedwan had any feelings for her. That was because she was very sensitive to people's emotional fluctuations. If someone liked her, she would be able to capture that feeling. However, Su Yedwan did not have the emotional fluctuations of liking her. This was also the reason why Bai Wei Wei coexisted with him so naturally. Su Yedwan ignored Oh Jinma's murderous gaze. I'm about the right age. I'm healthy and have a warm family. I'm financially independent and can support my wife and children. So I want to. Oh Jinma said, "You want to die?" Su Yedwan paused. Her smile finally disappeared. Mr. O, I don't think it's appropriate for an outsider to interrupt this topic. The doctor was angry. Oh Jinma raised his eyes. His amber eyes were deep and cold. He chuckled and suddenly reached out to hug Wei Wei Bai tightly. Wei Wei Bai didn't notice and was held in his arms. Oh Jinma stroked her long hair calmly. You may not know this, but I've known this silly girl since she was a child. She's innocent and was abducted by bad guys without my supervision. Are you going to take responsibility? Su Yedwan stared at his hand on Wei Wei Bai and suddenly straightened her face. I can take responsibility. Oh Jinma, even if you want to take responsibility, you're not involved. How much do you have in your bank account? Su Yedwan paused and said a number, and it was quite impressive. However, Oh Jinma raised his eyebrows and said calmly, I'm 100 times more than you. Furthermore, I'll earn more than 10,000 times more than you. His and Su Yedwan's positions. It established a different space for the two of them to soar. Su Yedwan's expression didn't look too good. I think that money isn't the only thing. There's also character, hobbies, and other factors that can be measured. Oh Jinma smiled. His beautiful face had a hint of innocence when he smiled. His words were sharp. Hobbies? Why would a doctor talk about hobbies with a singer? And character as well. You may know a person's face, but not his heart. Who knows if you're a beast in human clothing? Wei Wei Bai was in pain from Oh Jinma's grip. This was going to start a fight. The system was expressionless as it munched on its potato chips. This side mission is strange. Wei Wei Bai was also expressionless as she was pressed into Oh Jinma's arms. Yeah, Su Yedwan is just a passerby I met. How did she end up on the side mission list? And the side mission was very strange too. / you'll be able to see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like. Chapter 1197. Drinking Oh Jinma's wine in front of Su Yedwan. This was to provoke Su Yedwan, not to provoke Oh Jinma. That was why this was not helpful to Wei Wei Bai's main mission. Her target was not Su Yedwan after all. The system racked its brains. Also, little secrets have a wide range of missions. Wei Wei Bai said, Tell me the truth. Is the main system an old pervert who hasn't had sex for 10,000 years? Those side quests, those sick instructions to torture the targets to death. It was a proper FFF group. They were just short of holding torches to burn the heterosexuals to death. The system said, it's probably still a virgin. I'm sure. Wei Wei Bai was speechless. How explosive. Was this the gossip of the system world? The two men's eyes burned with passion. Their expressions darkened at the same time. Wei Wei Bai felt that she had become a source of trouble. After a moment of silence, she thought of the cat that was sleeping in her rented apartment. The cat would need to eat in an hour. She did not have time to waste here. She pushed Oh Jinma away, reached for the wine bottle on the table, and opened the lid. Then, she poured it into her mouth. She finished all the wine in the bottle. Wei Wei Bai slammed the bottle on the table and said coldly, "All right, I've eaten and drunk. I have something to do, so I have to go." She stood up, her face slightly red. She took her coat. "If you two feel like old friends, you can order more wine and continue to chat. I'll go first." The small mission was completed. Plus, with this situation, she might get into trouble. She should leave first. She did not want to play cross-eyed with these two men. Wei Wei Bai walked out, but the wind made her feel dizzy. Oh no, the wine is poisoned. The system could not bear to look. "You're drunk," Wei Wei Bai said. "I'm not drunk. You're talking nonsense. You're wrongly accusing me." The system didn't want to argue with the drunkard host. It was like a loving father. Okay. You're not drunk." "Wei Wei Bai, enough. You lied to me again. If I wasn't drunk, why would I think that the road was curved?" "System, what the hell do you want me to do?" Bai Weiwei covered her head. The road was crooked, and her walking posture was also crooked. A car suddenly stopped beside her. The door opened, and a hand grabbed her arm and pulled her into the car. Wei Wei Bai was dragged into this. Oh Jinma shoved her into the passenger's seat in a daze. Oh Jinma's jaw tightened, and his gaze was cold and sharp. He saw that her face was as red as a monkey's, and sneered, "How dare you drink so much when you don't know how to drink? If I wasn't here, no one would have found out that you were dead." Wei Wei Bai looked at him blankly. "You are..." Oh Jima drove the car. "I'm your friend, temporarily. In the future, you would be her temporary boyfriend. Forever lover." When this thought popped up, Oh Jima was surprised. He knew that he liked Wei Wei Bai, but this love actually made him want to be with her forever. When Wei Wei Bai heard him say friend, her face turned red and she started to think. Friend? The system reminded her. Wake up, he's your target. Wei Wei Bai's mind was in a daze, and the strategy had already become her instinct. Although she couldn't see Ojin Ma's face clearly, the strategy was related to flirting with men. So she said, "Do you want to date, friend?" Ojin Ma was confused. "Date for what?" Wei Wei Bai, "Date for a one-night stand." Ojin Ma, Transmigration system. Adonis, come here. Crossover system. Adonis, come here and read the full article at https://www.sashu. Com download Transmigration system. Adonis, come here and read this on your phone. https://m. Sashu. Com button. Chapter 1198. It couldn't be better. This was another kind of happiness that he had never felt before. Ding, the male lead's favorability is at 65. Wei Wei Bai had a splitting headache. She breathed heavily as if she had a terrible nightmare. She was crushed by the crane, back and forth. After the dream of being crushed disappeared, she had a dream of being tied up. She couldn't even turn over. Every time she wanted to struggle, she was tied up against the stove. She struggled to open her eyes and looked at the unfamiliar ceiling. She couldn't help but ask, "Why am I transmigrating again?" The system couldn't bear to look at her. This is the male lead's house. Wei Wei Bai had already noticed that the arm she raised was full of kiss marks. Kiss marks? Wei Wei Bai was silent for a moment before asking, "How many favorability points are there now?" The system, 65. Wei Wei Bai's voice was choked. "Selling my body only gave me so little favorability points." The system, selling your body, is not a long-term plan. You need to open your heart to quickly increase favorability points. Isn't this the golden rule? Actually, it was already very good that it increased so much. Wei Wei Bai, why didn't you buy the stickers? The system, last night you guys did it 4 times. Probably. After all, it was just guessing because it was blocked. Wei Wei Bai, then she nodded in resignation. Luckily you didn't buy it, or else I would have to strangle you. 4 stickers, 400 life points. 1 plane rewarded 30 days of life points. In other words, 400 days was enough for her to desperately transmigrate through more than 10 planes. Not to mention selling her body. She could actually sell her soul too. The system, it knew too well about the host's scrupulous and immoral level. It watched the host step by step, from a little cutie who couldn't bear to part with her first kiss to a veteran who could pull out her soul to wait for a good price. The system silently praised itself. Under the host pollution day and night, it didn't become a veteran. It had not become an old driver. It was still that pure and adorable system. Wei Wei Bai looked for her clothes on the floor and found that they were gone. But there was a set of clothes at the bedside. Did he buy it overnight? Wei Wei Bai picked it up and took a look. She was still too naive. These were Jean Ma's own clothes. White shirt and long black pants. She wrapped herself in the bedsheet and felt that Jean Ma's shamelessness had exceeded her expectations. She had no choice but to wear a white shirt with an extra length of sleeve. Not to mention the long pants, they could practically mop the floor. Jean Ma's legs were proportionately long. He was simply a leg demon himself. Walking out of the room, he heard the sound of sizzling coming from the open kitchen. She looked over curiously. She saw a slender figure standing in the kitchen. He lowered his head and was seriously frying an egg. His slender and fair fingers held the spatula and deftly flipped the egg over. After placing the egg on the plate, Jean Ma seemed to have sensed someone and turned around. He was slightly stunned when he saw that Wei Wei Bai was wearing his clothes. The wide shirt was tucked into the pants, and the pants were too long. She rolled them up, revealing her delicate ankles. She casually tied her hair into a bun, and strands of hair fell below her ears. She was fresh and beautiful like a puddle of clear water. She seemed to be a little lost. She didn't seem to know why she was there. Jean Ma was nervous, but when he saw the obvious marks on her neck, he couldn't help but swallow. Wei Wei Bai was so delicate that it made people want to pounce on her. Jean Ma suppressed his beastly nature as a man and revealed a gentle smile. Wei Wei, are you hungry? I made breakfast. To read the at https://www.sashu.com/ to read the full article at https://www.sashu.com to read the full article at https://www.sashu.com to read the full article at https://m.sashu.com. Chapter 1199. Bai Weiwei heard his somewhat hoarse voice. She didn't know what he was thinking, but blood rushed out of her face. Her lips trembled. I'm going back. She looked like she couldn't keep her cool. Jean Ma prepared the vegetable salad and poured a glass of milk into his hand. Then he turned a corner from the cooking table, stretched out his long legs, and walked out. Like Wei Wei Bai, he was barefooted. Walking in front of her, Jean Ma narrowed his eyes, and a dark light surged in them. He passed the glass of milk to her. Here, drink some and eat. Wei Wei Bai was shrouded by his tall figure, and an invisible pressure came over her. She couldn't stand it and took a few steps back. Then she said softly, It's okay, I'm going back. My cat. Jean Ma looked at her expressionlessly and casually drank a sip of milk. Before Wei Wei Bai could react, he had already clasped her neck with one hand and forced her to look up. He lowered his head and captured her lips. He took a sip of milk and passed it to her in a domineering manner. Wei Wei Bai was stunned. Her mouth was filled with the taste of milk and his scent. Jean Ma let go of her and looked at her sharply. Drink, I'll feed you. Wei Wei Bai seemed to be frightened by him and could only reach out to take the glass. Then she was pulled to the dining table by him. Jean Ma didn't sleep the entire night. He was too excited to watch Wei Wei Bai. He was also afraid that he would turn into a cat. Wei Wei Bai's cat was still sleeping in the rented apartment. If he turned into a cat in the middle of the night, wouldn't she be left alone in a strange place? Jean Ma didn't want her to see him sleeping when she woke up. That would make her misunderstand that he didn't have good stamina. Jean Ma placed the breakfast in front of Wei Wei Bai. He said, There's only Western breakfast left. If you don't like it, I can order takeout. Wei Wei Bai held the glass of milk and had a strange expression. Then she shook her head. It's okay, this is good enough. Jean Ma was in a good mood. He pulled out a chair and sat beside her. Then he stuck a piece of vegetable with a fork and passed it to her. Eat. He was feeding her. Wei Wei Bai avoided it and frowned. It's okay, I'll eat it myself. Oh, Jean Ma's eyes darkened, but he calmly stuffed the vegetable into his mouth. Bai Weiwei immediately looked at him warily, as if worried that he would chew and feed her. That image was too disgusting. He couldn't even think about it. Fortunately, Oh Jean Ma knew that it was disgusting and ate it himself. He didn't do anything terrible. Bai Weiwei didn't say much and didn't even mention what happened last night. She lowered her head and finished her food quickly. Oh Jean Ma didn't eat much. He was staring at Weiwei Bai. Seeing that she was done eating, he cleaned up the table. Weiwei Bai saw him put the plate in the sink. She finally stood up and said coldly, "Oh Jean Ma, where are my clothes?" She definitely wasn't suited to go out in this outfit. Oh Jean Ma looked extremely calm. He lowered his eyes and looked at the plate in his hand. He washed it seriously. The nanny was supposed to come over to clean up, but he had called in the morning and told her not to come. He wanted to spend some quality time with Weiwei Bai. It was a scary thought, but he was like a little boy who had fallen in love for the first time. Just the thought of one person made his fingers tremble with excitement. Weiwei Bai frowned. She had a bad feeling when he was silent. She suddenly turned around and walked to the door. She reached out to open it. The door was locked with a combination of fingerprint and password. The melancholy in Bai Weiwei's eyes deepened. Before she could turn around, a body was already pressed against her back. A hot chest and a man's scent surrounded her. Weiwei Bai was shocked. She turned around and saw Oh Jean Ma looking at her with dark eyes. His amber eyes didn't feel warm at all. Oh Jean Ma's expression was cold. His gentle face turned cold. "You want to run away after raping me?" Weiwei Bai's expression froze for a moment. Oh Jean Ma reached out and slowly pulled open his collar, revealing the nail marks on his neck and teeth marks on his chest. He laughed coldly. "I said I didn't want to, but you forced yourself on me. Now you don't want to admit it." Bai Weiwei. At the crossover system, Adonis, come here and read the full article at https://www.sashu.com. Download Transmigration system. Adonis, come here and read this on your phone. https://m. Sashu. Com at the bottom to record your reading record. The Transmigration system. Adonis, come here, that you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.